Hello, friends. I know you're here to escape the chaos of the world, sighing and drift into a peaceful night. But tonight's stories are not just here to calm your mind. They're here to pull you into a deeper, darker place. Find your coziest spot. Close your eyes. Let the sound of the rain wash away the weight of your day. Please comment below, where are you hiding tonight? Comment your city and country. Why? Because this story was woven specifically for your latitude. Now, let's descend into the darkness. Story 1. The Unknown Caller Who Knew When I Sleep. Do you know what happens when someone watches you every night? Pause 2s. Jason is about to discover that sleep is no longer safe, but the real danger is what comes after the call. Jason lived alone. He worked from home as a freelance graphic designer. He liked the quiet, the rain, the stillness of night. His routine was predictable. Dinner at 8, a movie by 10, lights out at midnight. Always midnight. But on that night, everything changed. Started with a soft buzz. His phone vibrated on the nightstand. Subtle vibration sound. Jason reached for it, eyes still adjusting to the dark. Unknown caller. Curious and half asleep, he answered. Silence. Then a whisper. I see you when you close your eyes. Jason shot up in bed. Bed creaks. The room felt suddenly cold, the shadows deeper. He turned on the lamp, heart pounding. Click. No one was there. He hung up. Probably a prank. Maybe a glitch. He turned off the phone and laid back down, but sleep didn't come. The next night, same time. 3 a.m. buzz, unknown caller. He didn't answer this time. The phone kept buzzing, every 5 minutes, until 3 a.m. He blocked the number. Still, the calls came. The following day, Jason changed his number. New SIM, new everything. He even reset the phone. That night at 12:03, the new phone buzzed. Unknown caller. This time, the whisper was replaced by slow, deliberate breathing. Then, you can change numbers, but not your habits. He dropped the phone. Thud. Rain slammed against the windows. He shut the curtains. The next morning, he met his friend Kyle for coffee. Jason told him everything. Kyle laughed. Man, that's either a genius prank or a crazy coincidence. Jason didn't laugh. He knew better. That night, he set up cameras. One in the bedroom, one at the front door, and one facing the street. He sat up in bed watching the monitor. Midnight came. 12:03 a.m. buzz, he answered. We see you now. He turned to the bedroom cam. Static, then black. His chest tightened. Breath hitches. Panic rose. Then the feed returned. His room. Empty. Just him. But he felt something. A breath on his neck. A pressure on the bed beside him. He didn't sleep that night. He went to the police the next day. They took notes, suggested turning off the phone. Probably spam or a stalker, they said. As he walked to his car, his phone buzzed again. Unknown. They can't stop us, Jason. He looked around the lot. Empty. But he felt eyes on him. That night, Jason unplugged everything. No internet, no power, no light. Midnight, silence. Then his laptop powered on. It wasn't plugged in. The screen blinked once. A message appeared. Sleep is when we learn you. Jason backed away. He grabbed his car keys and drove until sunrise. The next day, he contacted a tech specialist. They scanned his devices. Nothing abnormal. Clean, they said. But Jason knew better. His devices weren't infected. That evening he tried to stay awake. Coffee, cold showers. He watched the storm outside his window, but eventually sleep took him. He dreamed of floating in darkness, surrounded by static. Whispers filled the void. Many voices, repeating his name. He wasn't being watched through screens. He was inside them. When he woke, his phone was beside him. Voicemail. He hesitated, then played it, breathing, then a chant, distant, ancient. He played it again. The lights flickered. Electric buzz. He stepped into the hallway outside his apartment. It was dark, turned on his flashlight, etched on the door across from his. A symbol. Like circuitry but twisted, organic. He touched it. It was warm. A voice whispered behind him. Phase 1, complete. He turned. No one. He ran back inside and locked the door. His laptop lit up. A final message. You are now connected. Jason stared at the screen. This wasn't a hacker. It wasn't a prank. Something had opened a door, and it wasn't finished with him yet. Jason didn't sleep the next night. Not even a blink. Coffee and fear kept him awake. His laptop stayed shut. His phone off. The cameras he'd set up the night before were still rolling. Every few minutes he checked the feed like a man watching for ghosts. But it wasn't ghosts. He feared. It was them. He tried to convince himself it was just sleep deprivation. Maybe stress. Maybe some vivid nightmare amplified by too much caffeine. But deep down he knew better. Something had changed. Something had entered. By 4 a.m. he had paced the floor enough to wear down the carpet. He kept glancing at the dark corners of his apartment, as if the walls were listening. That symbol, on his neighbor's door, the twisted circuit-like etching that still burned in his memory. It hadn't been there the day before. It had shimmered with a faint glow, pulsing like it was breathing. And when he went to check again before dawn, it had vanished. He took a photo of where it had been. Nothing showed up. No mark, no residue, no proof. The wall looked ordinary. It was as if the symbol had never existed, like reality itself was being edited. Later that morning, Jason couldn't take it anymore. He drove to Kyle's place. This time, Kyle wasn't laughing. "You look like hell," Kyle said, handing him a mug of strong black coffee. Jason sat down at the kitchen table, hands trembling, and told him everything. Again. The calls, the cameras, the voice, the strange symbol. The message on his laptop that had appeared as if summoned from thin air. Kyle didn't interrupt this time. He just listened, nodding slowly. "You ever hear of signal possession?" Kyle asked eventually. Jason blinked. "What?" "It's like folklore meets quantum theory. My brother's into all kinds of conspiracy stuff. He says there are frequencies, not meant for human exposure, ultra-low band transmissions that don't just carry data. They carry something else." Jason leaned forward, his voice barely a whisper. "Something else like what?" "Entities, consciousness. Or worse, they don't need wires anymore. They piggyback through tech, devices, code. The more you respond to the signals, the more open you become." Jason remembered the voice in the dream, the way it slithered through his thoughts. "Sleep is when we learn you." Kyle got up and rummaged through a drawer. He handed Jason an old flip phone. No apps, no smart features, just numbers. "This isn't paranoia anymore, man. This is survival. No apps, no Bluetooth, no Wi-Fi. If you need me, call. Don't text, don't email. Keep your tech dark. Trust nothing that connects." Jason took it with shaking hands. That night, he disconnected everything in his apartment, even the microwave, even the power strip for the fridge. He lit candles and sat in the dark, listening to every creak and whisper of the night, waiting. At 12:03 a.m., the TV flickered on. It wasn't even plugged in. The screen glowed with static, and then an image emerged. Jason's heart stopped. It was his own face. Asleep. Jason staggered back. He was awake, wide awake. But the reflection on the screen blinked slowly, deeply asleep. His own sleeping face, projected through a TV without power. A whisper followed, so faint he thought he imagined it. "We're already inside." Jason screamed and lunged toward the TV. He yanked the cable from the wall. Sparks danced. The glow faded. He didn't sleep the rest of the night. Over the next 2 days, Jason moved into Kyle's garage. No internet, no TV, no smart anything. Candles for light, a wood-burning stove for warmth. Analog survival in a digital war zone. Jason hoped for peace, but peace didn't come. Instead, it came for Kyle. One morning, Jason found Kyle in the kitchen, pale and shaking. His hands trembled so badly he dropped the coffee mug. "They spoke to me," Kyle whispered. "Last night in my sleep, I saw you, inside a wall of screens. You were screaming, but no one could hear. They were watching you, learning through you. I think they're using you to reach me." Jason felt a chill crawl up his spine. Whatever this was, it was spreading like a virus, jumping hosts, infecting minds. That night, they agreed to take shifts. Kyle stayed up while Jason tried to rest for the first time in days. At 2:27 a.m., Kyle heard something, not from Jason's room, but from the walls. A low hum, like an old dial-up modem from hell. Then static, then whispers. He grabbed a hammer and smashed through the drywall. Dust filled the air. Inside the wall, pipes, wiring, normal things, but one pipe was warm, and it pulsed, rhythmically, like it was alive. When Jason woke the next day, Kyle was gone. The garage was empty, no note. No message, just the hammer left lying on the table, and Kyle's burner phone, still recording. Jason pressed play. A distorted voice crackled through the static. Phase 2. Transmission complete. That night, Jason returned to his apartment, just as he had in the days before. Everything was quiet. The darkness wrapped around the room, and the wind gently tapped against the windows. Tap, tap, tap. But Jason felt something strange, a pressure deep in his chest as if something heavy were weighing on him. It was a feeling he had experienced before, but this time it felt stronger. Something was watching him. He sat on the couch in the living room, eyes on the unlit screen. Everything seemed still, the shadows on the walls dancing ever so slightly, as though they too were following him. He took a deep breath, trying to calm himself. Inhale. Exhale. But suddenly, he felt an odd sensation in his head, as if invisible thoughts were sneaking into his mind. It was as though something was listening to him. From inside the dark, it was 12:03 a.m., just like every other night. The phone on the table vibrated suddenly, breaking the stillness. Buzz. Jason stared at it slowly, breathing deeply. "No, I won't answer," he whispered to himself, but he couldn't stop looking at it. The vibration continued, and after a few moments, the sound began. Soft, almost indistinguishable whispers. Whispers grow louder. "We see you, Jason." The words were faint, distant, as if coming from a faraway place. The voice passed through his ear, then disappeared into the shadows. Jason grabbed his phone with trembling hands and hung up quickly. Rustling sounds. His heart raced, but he tried to stay calm. Just another dream, he told himself. But he couldn't shake the feeling that something was following him. There was an unseen force, something that kept lingering. And then at that moment, the wind outside stopped completely, but the air in the apartment turned suddenly cold. Temperature drop effect. Jason wrapped himself in a blanket, but sleep wouldn't come. Thoughts raced through his mind without pause. Was it just a sound? Or was there something deeper behind it? As he tried to close his eyes, he remembered what his friend Kyle had said. Flashback tone. Have you ever heard of signal possession? Kyle had spoken of something strange, something that didn't make sense. He said there were frequencies humans were not meant to receive, ultra-low band, transmissions that carried more than just data. They carried something else. Jason leaned forward, barely whispering. Something else? Like what? Entities. Consciousness. Or worse. They don't need wires anymore. They get through tech. Devices. Code. The more you respond to them, the more open you become. Jason remembered the voice from his dream, the way it slithered through his thoughts. Echo effect. Sleep is when we learn you. Jason slowly sat up, his head in his hands. The words wouldn't stop. They were slipping in from the shadows, coming closer. And just when he thought it might pass, he heard something else, a slow, deliberate breath. Heavy breathing sound. A heavy, rhythmic sound, as though someone were standing right beside him. He opened his eyes quickly, scanning the room. It was empty, but the sound remained. The breath. It was in his ear, inside the silence of the night. And then a whisper, soft and clear. Close whisper. "We know you, Jason." Jason's body froze. "What do they want from me?" he whispered, his voice shaking. But there was no answer. The room was silent again, as if the world was holding its breath with him. Taking another deep breath, Jason got up and walked through the dark apartment. The air felt thick, almost suffocating. As he reached the doorway, he glanced back at the closed door to his neighbor's apartment, but there was no comfort there. He could feel it, the creeping sensation that whatever was happening to him was real. And then, the phone vibrated once more. Buzz! Jason picked it up slowly, his eyes locked on the dark screen. The same message appeared. "We see you. We know you." His hands trembled as the phone slipped from his grasp, falling to the floor with a soft thud. Thud. The air grew colder, and the darkness around him deepened. He sat back on the couch, staring at the dark corners of his apartment, and in that moment he understood. This wasn't just a strange coincidence. Whatever was happening, whatever was watching him, it was real. The phone buzzed again, the sound sharp in the quiet. Fuzzby. Jason hesitated, then turned the phone over in his hands. He didn't want to answer, didn't want to hear the voice again, but he knew he had no choice. He stared at the screen. There was no name, no number. It was an unknown caller. Again. And once again, the voice spoke. This time, clearer, more insistent. Distorted voice. "Sleep is when we learn you." Jason's pulse raced, his breath shallow. He hung up quickly, but the words echoed in his mind. Sleep. That was the key. He had to stay awake. But the question was, could he? Jason had spent the entire day in Kyle's garage. Wind howl sound. Hiding from the tech that once seemed so comforting. The days of digital screens and wireless signals had betrayed him, and now, he sat alone in the dim light of a single candle, trying to keep his mind calm. The wind outside howled, howl crescendo. But inside the garage, there was a strange kind of stillness. It was as if the world had held its breath. He had disconnected everything. No internet, no Wi-Fi, no phones. Even the microwave had been unplugged. He felt safe, for the first time in weeks, even though fear was still there, lurking in the back of his mind. Kyle had been quiet for most of the day. Jason couldn't help but notice how tired his friend looked. The dark circles under his eyes were deepening, and his hand trembled every time he held his mug. It was as if they both knew that something was coming. As night fell, Jason decided he would try to sleep. He needed rest. He had been running, on fumes for too long. But as soon as he closed his eyes, the whispers started again. Distant whispers. They were faint at first, distant, but they came faster and louder. He tried to block them out, focusing on the rhythmic sound of the wind, but it didn't help. The voices grew clearer. He could almost make out words. "You are the signal now. Jason." Jason's eyes shot open. Bed springs creak. He sat up straight in the bed, his heart racing. He looked around the room, but nothing was there. The garage was empty. The only sound was the wind, howling through the cracks in the walls. "Stay calm," Jason whispered to himself. "It's just my mind playing tricks, just exhaustion. You've been through this before." But deep down, he knew something had changed. This wasn't just a nightmare. He wasn't just hearing things. The whispers were real. Jason stood up, pacing back and forth in the small garage. The walls felt like they were closing in on him. He couldn't stay here anymore. Whatever was happening, it had to be stopped. He needed answers, and the only place he could think of was the old warehouse. The warehouse. It was the place that had haunted his thoughts for days now. The place where everything seemed to have started. Jason grabbed his jacket and his keys, his body moving on its own, driven by something he couldn't understand. He needed to go there. Tonight. As he stepped outside, the cold night air hit his face, sharp and biting. Sharp inhale. The rain had stopped, and the streets were eerily quiet. Jason's footsteps echoed in the silence as he walked to his car. He didn't look back. The drive to the warehouse felt longer than it ever had before. Every corner seemed to stretch out forever. The darkened streets seemed to blur together, and Jason's mind began to wander. What was waiting for him at the warehouse? Was it a place of answers, or was it something worse? Something he couldn't escape? By the time he reached the warehouse, the sky had turned an ominous shade of deep blue. The building loomed ahead, a hulking mass of decay and rot. The heavy metal door creaked open when Jason touched it. Metal screeched just like it had been waiting for him. Inside, everything was as he remembered it. The rows of screens, the blinking lights, the hum of machinery. But something was different now. The air felt thicker, as though it were alive with something unseen. Jason's breath quickened, his pulse racing. The screens flickered to life. And then, Jason saw it, his own face, staring back at him. He wasn't sure whether to laugh or scream. His reflection was motionless, his eyes empty. The camera zoomed in, focusing on his face, and the whispers began again. "We are inside you now. You are the key." Jason felt his knees weaken. The world around him seemed to bend, as if reality itself was warping. The screens continued to show him, to show his every movement, his every breath. He turned around, searching for something, anything that could explain what was happening. But there was nothing, just the screens, just the voices. Suddenly, a new screen flickered to life in front of him. This time, it wasn't his face. It was a map of the city, with a blinking red dot. Jason recognized the location immediately. It was the apartment building where he had lived, the one with the strange symbol on the door across the hall. "You are the signal," the voice whispered again. But this time, it was more than just words. Jason could feel it. The sensation of being watched, of being used. It was inside him now, running through his veins. Jason reached out to the screen, his fingers trembling as they brushed the cold glass. Glass tap sound. A chill ran down his spine, and the whispers grew louder. "You cannot escape now, Jason. You are connected." The lights in the warehouse flickered, light buzzing. And for a moment, Jason could see shadows moving in the corners of the room. They were watching him. They were waiting. Something inside him screamed, but his body refused to move. He was trapped. He turned back to the screen. His mind racing, he needed to act. He needed to break free. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't move. The cold touch of something unseen pressed against his skin. and the whispers grew louder. Phase 3 began, the voice murmured. Jason's body was no longer his own. He was no longer just Jason. He was part of the signal now, part of the system. His mind was trapped in the same place as the others, on the other side of the screen. In a flash, everything went black. Jason awoke in his bed. The soft sound of rain pattering against the window was the only thing that grounded him. Gentle rain. His heart raced, but his body was still. He was alive. He was home. But then he remembered. The warehouse, the screens, the voices, the whispers were still with him. His phone buzzed from across the room. Buzz effect. Jason hesitated. He didn't want to answer. He didn't want to hear it again. But somehow, he knew he had no choice. He reached for the phone. The screen lit up with a single message. From Kyle. Run. Jason felt a chill creep up his spine. He tried to move, but his body wouldn't respond. He couldn't breathe. His chest tightened as if something was pressing down on him, suffocating him. The lights flickered. Light flicker sound. Behind him. The TV turned on. Static. TV static noise. A voice. Familiar. Phase 4. Complete. Jason's breath caught in his throat. Slowly. He turned around. The screen flickered. And through the haze of static, something began to take shape. A figure, its eyes black, endless, staring directly at him. The whispers filled the room. They were inside him, filling his mind, swirling around him. Jason reached out, but his fingers couldn't touch anything. He was already part of it. He had been for a long time, and then a final whisper. Sleep is no longer safe. Jason screamed. Blood-curdling scream, but no one heard. In the distance, the lights of a police car flickered, cutting through the night. Siren wail. The Federal Bureau of Investigation had been following the trail of strange occurrences for weeks. The technology, the patterns, the connection between the disappearances, it all pointed to one thing: the hackers. But when they arrived at Jason's apartment, they found only one thing: a room that was silent, and a message that still blinked on the screen. You are now connected. The investigation would continue, the hackers would be found, but the spirits, the whispers, they would remain, and the signal would never die. Story 2. Whispers in the basement rain. Do you know what happens when you open the wrong door during a storm? Susan will find out that some whispers are real, and they never stop, calling your name. It was raining again. The sound hit the windows. Soft, then heavy. Boom. Thunder followed. Susan sat on her bed. The light from her lamp was soft. The room was warm. She was alone again. Her mom worked the night shift. Her house felt too quiet. Only the rain spoke. She liked the rain. It made her feel safe. It was like a soft blanket on the world. But tonight, the rain felt different. Drip. Drip. Susan looked up. That sound. It wasn't the rain. She stood up. She listened closely. Drip. Drip. It was coming from the hallway, not the roof, not the window, from downstairs. She opened her door. The hallway was dark. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Maybe the sink is leaking, she whispered. She walked toward the stairs. She passed the wall of family pictures. One photo showed her mom smiling. One photo showed her and her dad. He left when she was 6. She didn't remember much, but she remembered the rain that night, too. She stopped at the top of the stairs, looked down. It was darker down there. Colder. Then she heard it, a whisper. Soft. Like the wind. Come down. Please. Her heart jumped. She looked around. No one was there. Maybe I imagined it, she said, but then the basement door creaked, just a little. Don't be afraid, the voice said. Susan took a step back. Her hands were cold. Who was speaking? How did they know her name? She ran back to her room, closed the door, locked it. She climbed into bed, pulled the blanket up. Boom! Another thunderclap. She closed her eyes. It's just the storm, she told herself. It's just the wind and rain but then... Knock, knock. Someone was at her door. Susan, a soft voice. I miss you. She froze. It sounded like a little girl. But she was alone. She didn't move. She didn't speak. The knocks stopped. The voice faded. She waited a full minute. Nothing. She stood up again, walked to her door. She unlocked it, opened it slowly. No one. Just darkness. She looked toward the basement. The door was wide open now. She swallowed hard. Just close the door, she told herself. Just close it and go to sleep. She took a step down the hall. The floor creaked. She hated that sound. She reached the basement door, held the knob. Her hand shook. Then, she looked down. The basement was dark, but something moved. A shadow. It ran across the bottom. Hello? She whispered. No answer. Then she saw the light bulb. It turned on by itself. Blink. Blink. Steady. She stepped down. Just one step, then another, then more. Each step creaked. The air was cold. It smelled like earth and old things. She reached the bottom. The light flickered. The room was full of boxes, old books, paint cans, but in the middle, a chair, facing the wall. The light from her lamp was soft. The room was warm. She was alone again. Her mom worked the night shift. Her house felt too quiet. Only the rain spoke. She liked the rain. It made her feel safe. It was like a soft blanket on the world. But tonight, the rain felt different. Drip. Drip. Susan looked up. That sound. It wasn't the rain. She stood up. She listened closely. Drip. Drip. It was coming from the hallway, not the roof, not the window, from downstairs. She opened her door. The hallway was dark. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Maybe the sink is leaking, she whispered. She walked toward the stairs. She passed the wall of family pictures. One photo showed her mom smiling. One photo showed her and her dad. He left when she was 6. She didn't remember much, but she remembered the rain that night, too. She stopped at the top of the stairs, looked down. It was darker down there. Colder. Then she heard it, a whisper. Soft. Like the wind. Come down. Please. Her heart jumped. She looked around. No one was there. Maybe I imagined it, she said, but then the basement door creaked, just a little. Don't be afraid, the voice said. Susan took a step back. Her hands were cold. Who was speaking? How did they know her name? She ran back to her room, closed the door, locked it. She climbed into bed, pulled the blanket up. Boom! Another thunderclap. She closed her eyes. It's just the storm, she told herself. It's just the wind and rain but then... Knock, knock. Someone was at her door. Susan, a soft voice. I miss you. She froze. It sounded like a little girl. But she was alone. She didn't move. She didn't speak. The knocks stopped. The voice faded. She waited a full minute. Nothing. She stood up again, walked to her door. She unlocked it, opened it slowly. No one. Just darkness. She looked toward the basement. The door was wide open now. She swallowed hard. Just close the door, she told herself. Just close it and go to sleep. She took a step down the hall. The floor creaked. She hated that sound. She reached the basement door, held the knob. Her hand shook. Then, she looked down. The basement was dark, but something moved. A shadow. It ran across the bottom. "Hello?" she whispered. No answer. Then she saw the light bulb. It turned on by itself. Blink. Blink. Steady. She stepped down. Just one step, then another, then more. Each step creaked. The air was cold. It smelled like earth and old things. She reached the bottom. The light flickered. The room was full of boxes, old books, paint cans, but in the middle, a chair, facing the wall. Someone was in it. Susan's voice shook. "Mom?" The figure didn't move. She walked closer. Her shoes made no sound. She felt like the room was holding its breath. She touched the chair. It was empty, but on the wall in front of it, words, scratched into the paint. Scary stories for sleep. I opened the door. Suddenly, she heard a voice. Behind her. "Now it's your turn." She turned fast. There stood a girl. She looked like Susan. Same hair, same face, same eyes. But this girl smiled. Too wide, too still. "Who are you?" Susan whispered. The girl didn't answer. She just pointed. To the wall. New words appeared. "Horror, story for sleep. You came down, you stay now." Susan turned and ran. She climbed the stairs, but the door slammed shut. She pulled. It didn't move. The light in the basement turned red. Whispers filled the air. Fast. Loud. Everywhere. "Stay with us. Don't leave. Be one of us." She screamed, but no sound came out. Suddenly, the door opened. She fell out. The hallway was quiet. Lights back on. The basement door closed behind her. She got up, ran to her room, closed the door. She sat on the bed, breathing fast, shaking. Then she saw it, a picture on her desk. It was her, standing in the basement, but she didn't remember taking it. She was smiling in the photo. Behind her, a shadow. She picked it up. On the back, words in red. Black screen. "See you tonight." She dropped it, stepped away. Boom. The thunder started again. The rain grew louder. Whispers rose with it. Susan crawled under her blanket. She closed her eyes. She whispered, "Make it stop." But the voice came again, right next to her ear. "We never stop." The rain never stopped. It fell, steady, like a clock ticking. Each drop hit the window. Soft, then strong. Susan didn't sleep that night. She stayed in her bed, blanket over her head. The photo was still on the floor, the words still there. Scary stories for sleep. See you tonight. She watched the clock. Midnight passed. Then 1. Then 2. Nothing, just rain. She closed her eyes. Maybe it was a dream. Maybe the storm made her imagine everything. But the basement door, it creaked again. She sat up fast, her heart beat hard. She listened. No footsteps, no voice, just the sound of the door, moving a little. Then still. Morning came gray. Clouds were low. The world outside looked quiet. But inside Susan, everything felt broken. She got out of bed, stepped over the photo. She picked it up. She stared at her face in the picture. It looked happy. But she knew. She wasn't smiling last night. She turned the photo over. Now the writing said, "Horror story for sleep. We're not done." She dropped it again. Her hand shook. She needed answers. She went downstairs, carefully. The basement door was closed. She didn't touch it. She walked into the kitchen. She picked up the phone, called her mom. No answer, just voicemail. She left a message. "Mom, I need to talk to you. Something strange is happening. Please call me." Then she heard it again. That voice, Susan, this time, it came from the kitchen sink. She stepped back. The faucet turned on by itself. Water flowed. but it was black, thick. She screamed and turned away, but the voice followed, in her ear. "Come down again. We have more to show you." "No!" she shouted. She ran outside, into the rain. It was cold, but she didn't care. She needed to get away. She walked to the end of the block. She knocked on her neighbor's door. Mrs. Hill opened it. She was old, kind. "Susan? Are you all right, dear?" Susan's lips shook. I think my house is haunted." Mrs. Hill looked surprised. Then her face changed. She looked scared. "What did you hear?" "Voices. In the basement. Last night the door opened by itself." Mrs. Hill looked away, then back. "Your house has a story," she said. "What do you mean?" "The last family, they left, fast. Before them, another girl lived there. Her name was Susan, too." Susan blinked. "What?" Mrs. Hill nodded. "She disappeared. During a storm, no one found her. Her picture was left on the stairs." Susan stepped back. It felt like the air froze. "Do you know what she looked like?" she asked. Mrs. Hill nodded. "She looked like you." Susan couldn't breathe. She turned and ran. She ran back home. The rain hit her hard, but the cold outside was warmer than the fear inside. She entered the house. It was quiet again. She didn't go upstairs. She didn't go to the kitchen. She stood in front of the basement. The door was open. Inside, the light was on, but it was red. Again, she felt pulled, like the air was calling her name. "Susan." She stepped down, one step, then two. She didn't want to, but her feet kept moving. Halfway down, the light went off. Darkness. She stopped, turned around. The door above her closed. She was trapped again. She whispered, "Please, just let me go." The whispers answered, "Stay. We like you." She turned on her phone light. The beam shook in her hand. She reached the bottom, looked around. This time, the basement had changed. No boxes, no chair, only mirrors lining the walls. She walked to one, looked in. She saw herself, but her reflection, it moved on its own. It raised its hand, pointed behind her. Susan turned fast. Nothing there. Then the reflection smiled. Her mouth didn't. "Stop!" Susan cried. The mirrors cracked all at once. From each mirror, a whisper, soft, cold. "We're inside now." The light came back, but now the walls were covered. Pictures, all of Susan. Different clothes, different days. Some looked like her now. Some like she was younger. Some she never lived. Then she saw one. From today. She was in the rain, standing at Mrs. Hill's door, but no one else in the photo. Just her. She dropped her phone. It went dark. The whispers stopped. A new sound came. Footsteps from the back of the basement. Slow. Susan stood frozen, eyes wide. A figure appeared. It was her. Again. But this one looked sad. She reached out a hand, spoke one word. "Help." Then a black shadow grabbed her, pulled her back. She screamed. The echo stayed behind. Susan ran to the stairs, climbed fast, banged the door. "Let me out." Then the door opened. Her mom stood there. "Susan, what are you doing down there?" Susan cried. She jumped into her mom's arms. "I didn't go down. It pulled me." Her mom looked confused. "It's just an old basement, honey." "No, it's not. There's something inside." Her mom held her. "It's okay now, you're safe." But Susan knew she wasn't. Her mom held her. "It's okay now, you're safe." But Susan knew she wasn't. That night, she found another picture under her pillow. It was blank. Just white. Then, red words appeared. "Horror story for sleep. Tomorrow. We show you what you really are. Rain again, always rain. It hit the windows like fingers, tapping, soft but steady, like someone waiting. Susan stayed in her room. She didn't go downstairs. She didn't go near the basement. She sat on her bed, blanket over her shoulders. The picture from last night was on the floor, still white, but the red words had changed. Now it said, "Scary stories for sleep. We remember you." She didn't know what that meant, but it made her cold. Very cold. She heard her mom downstairs, moving around the kitchen. Normal sounds, but nothing felt normal. Not anymore. She got up. She needed to talk. She walked to the stairs. Her mom looked up. "Morning, honey." Susan nodded, but didn't smile. "I need to ask you something." Her mom put the mug down. "What is it? Did someone else ever live in this house and with my name?" Her mom paused. Then she said, "No. Why do you ask?" Susan looked at her. Her mom's eyes were calm. Too calm. "There are photos in the basement of me, but not me." Her mom sighed. "Susan, you've had a hard week. Maybe it's just stress." "It's not stress," Susan shouted. "There was another girl and she looked just like me." Her mom's face changed, her hands trembled. Then she whispered, "Who told you that?" Susan stepped back. "You're lying. You knew." Her mom looked away. "I didn't want to scare you. We were told it was just rumors." "What rumors?" Her mom took a deep breath. "There was a girl years ago. Her name was Susan too. She disappeared during a storm." Susan's heart dropped. "How long ago?" 15 years, her mom said quietly. Susan blinked. She was 15. She ran back upstairs to her room. She slammed the door. She pulled out an old yearbook she found in the attic last month. She opened the back pages, the ones where people wrote messages, and there it was. "Susan R., don't forget our science project. You're the best. Sarah M." She wasn't in school yet when this book was printed. She turned another page. There was a photo, a girl standing near the lockers, smiling. She looked exactly like her. Same face, same eyes, same name under the photo. Susan rose. She whispered, "Why me?" Then her phone rang. She didn't know the number, but she answered. A voice said, "You saw her, didn't you?" It was a girl, soft voice, like hers. "Who are you?" Susan asked. "You already know." Then the line went dead. That night, Susan locked her door. She placed her chair against it. She kept the lights on. She didn't want the dark. But at midnight, the light flickered, then off. She grabbed her flashlight. She didn't hear footsteps. Not this time. She heard humming, a soft melody, a lullaby. It came from the wall. She pressed her ear to it. Sleep tight, little rain. Then silence. She backed away. Then something moved under her bed. Slow, scratchy. She dropped the flashlight. It rolled. The beam pointed under the bed. She knelt, looked. Eyes stared back. Her eyes, but not afraid. The voice whispered, "Let's trade places." Susan jumped back, ran to the door. It was locked. The chair wouldn't move. The room was cold now. Her breath showed in the air. She turned slowly. The girl from under the bed was standing, now in her room. Same face, same pajamas. But her smile was wide. Too wide. "Who are you?" Susan cried. "I'm you," the girl said. "I was you first." Then the girl stepped forward. Susan threw her blanket, ran past her. The hallway was dark, but she ran anyway. Down the stairs. To the front door. She pulled. It wouldn't open. The windows were fogged. Rain hit harder now, like fists. Behind her, the humming came again. She turned. The other Susan stood by the stairs. But now, she wasn't alone. A tall shadow stood beside her. No face, just black. It touched the girl's shoulder. She smiled more. "She came back for you," the girl said. "She wants her name." Susan shook her head. "No. I'm real. You're not." The girl's eyes glowed red. "I was here first," Susan screamed. Then her mom ran in. "What's going on?" Susan pointed. But the girl was gone. So was the shadow. "I saw her. She was here." Her mom held her. "It's okay. It's okay." But it wasn't. Because on the wall behind her, there was writing. In red. Black screen. Trade complete. Day 1. The next morning, Susan didn't feel the same. Her room looked normal. The sun was out, but she felt wrong. She looked in the mirror. Her face was there, but when she blinked, the reflection didn't. She gasped. The mirror cracked. A whisper came from inside. "Almost done." Then gone. She grabbed her backpack. She ran outside. She went back to Mrs. Hill, banged on her door. The old woman opened. Her eyes widened. "Susan," she said, "you shouldn't be here. I need help." Mrs. Hill shook her head. "It's too late. You've seen her. She's chosen you. What do I do?" "There's one way, but it's dark. Very dark." "I'll do it," Susan said. Mrs. Hill opened a drawer, pulled out an old photo. It showed the basement, years ago, but in the center, a girl, chained to the floor. Same face, same eyes, same smile. Mrs. Hill whispered, "She didn't leave. She was taken. Her soul still waits. How do I stop her?" "You have to face her. Alone. At the hour of reversal." "What's that?" 3:23 a.m. when the storm turns back. Susan left, back home, her heart heavy. She waited, listened to the rain. At 3:22 she stood. The wind picked up. She walked down, back to the basement. She opened the door. It was already waiting. Red. Light again, and in the middle, a mirror, tall, clean. She walked to it, looked in. The other, Susan, stood there, smiling. "Ready to come home?" she asked. Susan took a deep breath. "No. I'm ready to end this." She reached forward, touched the glass. It burned, but she didn't stop. The mirror cracked. Then, it shattered. The wind howled. Voices screamed. The red light turned white. Then, black. Then, silence. Susan woke up. In her bed. Sunlight on her face. She looked around. Everything looked normal. No red lights, no whispers. She stood, looked in the mirror. This time, her reflection smiled. When she did, but behind her, the closet. Drawer creaked, a voice whispered, "Final night, tomorrow." Rain. Again. But not soft this time. It was wild, loud, angry. The sky cracked open with thunder. Wind slammed the windows. The house moaned like it was alive. Susan sat in her room, eyes wide. She didn't sleep. The night before, not after what she saw. The mirror, the girl, the voice. Final night. Tomorrow. Now, it was tomorrow. Now, it was tonight. The final night. She held the picture from the attic, the one with the other Susan, the girl in chains. She flipped it over. Faint words were written in pencil. To break her grip, return the name. Return the name, what did that mean? The words echoed in her mind. Return the name. She thought of the other Susan, the girl who had haunted her every step, the girl in the mirror. Susan closed her eyes. What if she had made a mistake? What if she was never supposed to be here? Suddenly, the air in her room turned cold, ice cold. She could hear her mom downstairs cooking. The smell of soup filled the air. Warm, safe. But nothing felt safe anymore. She had to act. Susan stood and walked to the door, the flashlight still in her hand. She opened it slowly. Down the hall, she could hear her mom humming, the soft sound of a spoon stirring soup. Her heart raced. She had to know. "Mom?" she called softly. Her mom turned, smiling. "Hey, sweetheart, you want some soup?" Susan hesitated for a moment. There was something in her mom's eyes that made her uneasy, but she smiled back. "Sure, Mom." They sat together. The table was warm, but Susan couldn't shake the feeling. Her mom's face softened as she stirred the soup. "Do you remember the other Susan?" she asked. Her mom stopped. Her eyes darkened. "The other Susan? I remember." "Why is she here?" Susan asked, her voice trembling. Her mom leaned in closer, a strange smile spreading across her face. "She never left, you know." Susan swallowed hard. "What do you mean?" "She tried to come back before, but she was weak. Now, she's strong. Now, she's here." Her mom's voice changed. Her eyes turned black. Cold. Empty. Susan stood, backing away. "You're not my mom." The thing, no, it wasn't her mom, smiled wider. "No, I am everyone she touched. Everyone who forgot her." Susan turned and ran. She didn't look back. Up the stairs. To her room. The door slammed shut behind her. She locked it quickly, then pushed her dresser in front of it. The lights flickered, then went out. Darkness. Susan grabbed her flashlight, her hands trembling. The air was thick. Something wasn't right. Then came the whisper. "Susan, come play." It came from the corner of the room. She froze. "Not again? Please." The closet door creaked open. It was her, the other Susan. Wet hair, pale, ghostly skin, eyes black as night. She floated into the room, her feet not touching the floor. "You can't escape," the other Susan said, her voice dripping with malice. Susan backed away. "No, you're not me." The other Susan smiled. "Oh, but we are the same." "No," Susan said, her voice shaking. "You're not me. You never were." The other Susan stepped closer. The room grew colder. The walls began to crack. Shadows moved across the floor like crawling creatures. Susan turned to the mirror. It glowed a deep red. "No," she cried. But her feet wouldn't move. The other Susan spoke again. "You can't stop me. You took everything from me." Susan's breath caught in her throat. She reached for the picture, the one with the name, the girl in chains. She stared at the back of the picture. To break her grip, return the name, she understood. But how could she return the name? How could she fix this? And then it hit her. The name. The name was the key. She whispered the words softly. Susan rose. The room seemed to tremble. The shadows grew darker. The mirror flashed brighter. "I give you Susan Rose," she whispered again. Then she closed her eyes. "And I take another." A blinding light erupted from the mirror. The room shook violently. The other Susan screamed in rage. The shadows screamed too. Susan screamed with them. The mirror shattered. Shards of glass flew across the room, cutting the air. Everything went silent. Then, the storm stopped. The rain outside was soft now. The house was still. Susan opened her eyes. The girl was gone. The shadows were gone. The voice. Silent. Susan stood up. Her heart raced. She could breathe again. She walked to the door, slowly. She opened. Her mom stood there, her real mom, eyes warm, a smile full of love. "Are you okay?" her mom asked gently. Susan nodded. I think it's over. The next day was bright. The sun was shining. No clouds, no rain. Susan sat in the garden. She held the picture, the one that had caused all of this. But something was different. The face in the photo was gone. It was blank. The name was gone. No Susan Rose. No Susan, just peace. That night, Susan wrote in her journal, her new name, Sophia. She didn't need to be Susan anymore. That name didn't belong to her, not anymore. But just before she turned off the light, she saw something outside the window. A shadow. It was watching her. A faint whisper drifted in the wind. Thank you. Susan froze. But then, she closed the curtain. She turned on the rain sounds on her phone. Climbed into bed. As the storm passed far in the distance, she whispered, "Goodbye." And then, she fell asleep. Story 3. Nightmares from the apartment where no one lives. Do you know what happens when a place forgets it's empty? Ben is about to find out what sleeps inside apartment 6B, where no one has lived in years. But some rooms don't like being alone. The rain falls softly tonight. It taps the windows like a lullaby. Tap, tap, tap. Ben lies in bed trying to sleep. His apartment is quiet. Too quiet. He moved in 3 days ago. A small place, second floor, old building, old smells. Still, it's cheap. Close to his job and quiet neighbors, or so he thought. Knock, knock, knock. His eyes snap open. He holds his breath, waits. Knock, knock, knock again, slow, heavy. It's not his door, it's the door across the hall, apartment 6B, but 6B is empty. The landlord told him, "That place, been empty since '08. Don't worry about it." Ben didn't ask why. He needed the room, didn't care. But now, he cares. He sits up. Rain slides down the window like fingers. Long, cold. He checks the time. 3 a.m. Always 3 a.m. He listens. The hallway is still. No footsteps. No voices. Just the knock, 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 knock again, always 3. He can't ignore it anymore. He gets out of bed, puts on his slippers, and grabs a flashlight. The hall light doesn't work. Never worked. He opens the door. Slowly. Peeks. Out. Dark. Still. He steps into the hallway. The building smells like mold, old rain, something sweet, rotten. His flashlight shakes. Click, click. The battery's weak. He walks to 6B. The door is closed. No light inside. He listens, ear near the wood. Nothing. But the air? It hums, low, like a fridge left open. He knocks once. A test. The sound echoes. Thud, thud, thud. He waits. No answer. Of course, still. He tries the doorknob. It turns. Click. The door opens. Just a little. He didn't mean to, but it does. His heart beats faster. Thump, thump, thump. Mouth dry, like cotton. He should walk away. Go back to bed. But something calls to him. Soft, like a hum. He pushes the door open. Slowly. Creak. The smell hits him. Dust. Wet wood. Something. Sour. Milk left out, he thinks. He shines the flashlight inside. Boxes. Old furniture. Shadows that don't sit still. He steps in. Carefully. Feet press on soft carpet. Too soft. Like something underneath, unmoving. Breathing. The air is heavy. Thick. The apartment breathes. In, out, in, out. To the left, a small kitchen. Broken fridge. Empty cabinets. A teacup on the counter. Still full. The tea's black. Thick. Cold. Who made this? He walks to the living room. Dust covers everything, but there are footprints. Fresh. Leading to a chair. Someone sat there. Last night. Tonight. Now. He hears a whisper. Do you see it? He turns. No one there. But the air, colder now. He walks to the wall. Photos hang crooked, people, families, every face, scratched out, lines across the eyes. He shivers. Then he sees one photo. Him, standing outside the building, looking up, taken from behind. He's wearing the clothes from move-in day. He didn't take this photo. No one did. But it's real. He steps back, bumps into a table. A vase wobbles, falls, crash. But the sound, muffled, like it's underwater. The vase shatters, not into pieces, into dust. Silence. Then, knock, knock, knock. From inside the apartment, from the bedroom, he walks to the door, slightly open. Dark inside, he pushes it open. The flashlight flickers, buzz, then steadies. A bed, covered in plastic. A dresser, on top. A box. Inside the box, photos, all of him. Sleeping, eating, brushing his teeth. Photos from his life, here, now. He feels watched, eyes, everywhere. He turns, in the mirror, a shape, not him, not human. Tall, black, no face, just eyes. Eyes like holes, deep, wide. He spins around, no one. Mirrors, cracked, shape's gone. He runs out of the room, through the living room. The front door's closed, locked. He pulls, it opens. He rushes out, back to his room, slams the door, locks it, breathes hard, too hard. He sits. It's quiet again. But then, he looks at his desk. There's a photo that wasn't there before, and it's him, sleeping, taken, tonight. He doesn't sleep again. Not that night. Or the next. The days pass. He hears knocks every night. Always at 3 a.m. Always. 3 knocks. He tells the landlord. The landlord just says, "Don't go in there again, ever." No explanation. Just that. One night, he puts a towel under his door, plays rain sounds, soft, endless, puts in earplugs, still. He dreams. In the dream, he's in 6B, dark. He's not alone. The figure's there. It whispers. "You see now. You belong here." He wakes up shaken, crying. The knock comes again. Knock, knock, knock. He can't escape it. Not anymore. His reflection starts to change. In mirrors. In windows. Sometimes, it doesn't move with him. One night, he tries to move out. He packs a bag, heads for the door. He opens it. Across the hall, the door to 6B is open, waiting. He drops his keys, steps back, closes his door. He never tries to leave again. Now, he listens. Every night. Knock, knock, knock. And sometimes he knocks back. Tap, tap, tap. The rain has not stopped. For 5 days, it's fallen. Soft. Slow. Never loud. Just like the whispers. Ben doesn't leave the apartment much anymore. He tries. Puts on his shoes. Picks up his keys. But then, he sees the photo. Always a different one. Him, brushing his teeth. Him, looking at the hallway. Him, sleeping. The photos are new, but no one takes them. He asks the landlord again. "Is there a camera in my room?" The landlord shook his head. "Nah. Just don't talk to 6B. It don't like attention." Ben laughed. Small. Nervous. "It's not a person," he said. The landlord didn't laugh. Just walked away. That night, The rain hit harder, still soft, but steady. It sounded like footsteps on the window. Tap, tap, tap. Ben lay in bed, eyes open, listening. Knock, knock, knock. As always, 3 a.m. He didn't move. Knew what it was. But this time, there was more. A sound behind the wall, his bedroom wall, the one that touches 6B. He pressed his ear to it. At first, nothing. Then, static, like a radio, far away. Then, a voice, low, dry. He sees us. He doesn't belong yet. Ben jumped back, didn't sleep. The next morning, Ben opened the closet, the small one near his bed. It smelled strange. Wet books. Salt. He noticed something new. A crack on the back wall. Small. Thin. Wasn't there before. He touched it. Warm. Not the room. Not the air. Just that spot. He leaned close. Listened. At first, nothing. Then breathing. Not his. Not from the hallway. Inside the wall. Slow. Wet. Like something big. Sleeping. He stepped back. Closed the closet. Locked it. With tape. And a chair. Later that day, he heard footsteps above him. No floor above. Just the roof. Still. Footsteps. Heavy. Slow. Like someone walking in a circle. All day. Thud. 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 That evening, the lights flickered. Not just his. The hallway too. Then, darkness. 1 full minute. Everything black. He sat on the couch. Flashlight in hand. In the dark, he felt something. Behind him. Breathing again. Soft. Close. He didn't move, didn't look. When the lights came back, the air was cold. The closet door open. He called his friend Jake. Jake answered. Hey, Ben. I think something's wrong, Ben said. With your place? Ben nodded. Realized Jake couldn't see. Yeah, someone's in the walls. Jake laughed. You okay, man? Maybe it's the rain. Ben didn't laugh. Come over, please. Jake agreed. Jake came at 7:30. Ben waited at the door. Didn't want to go inside. Jake walked around, opened closets, checked curtains. Ben, nothing here. Ben nodded, slow. But Jake paused. Okay. This is weird. He was looking at the photos on the fridge. All photos of Ben and scattered on the floor, faces blurred, eyes scratched out. Where'd you get these? Jake's voice cracks. Ben shook his head, hands trembling. I didn't. They just appear. Jake frowned, stepping closer. The closet door creaks, a soft click. The one near the bed, the air feels heavy. It's warm here, Jake whispers. Ben's face turned pale, sweat on his brow. Jake put his hand on the wall, fingers brushing the peeling paint. Suddenly, he pulled it back, hissing. What was that? His voice shakes, his palm was red, blisters forming, like it had burned him, but no flames, just a warm wall. Humming. Alive. Jake didn't stay long after that. He said he had work in the morning, but his eyes lied wide, scared. Ben didn't blame him. That night, Ben couldn't sleep again. The knock came later this time. Irregular. Knock. 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 3:47 a.m. The numbers glow red. A change. A shift in the pattern. Then, Something new. Tap, tap, tap. Inside the wall, behind the headboard. A response. A game. Ben sat up. Sheets tangled. Heart racing. He grabbed a notepad. Pen shaking. Wrote down what he heard. Knocks. Taps. Breath. Ragged. Wet. He tried to make sense of it. Was it Morse code? Letters? SOS. Help. Run. He tapped back. 3 knocks. Waited. Silence. Thick. Suffocating. He tried again. 2 knocks. Then, from the wall, 2 taps. Sharp. Precise. A reply. A conversation begins. The next day, the hallway smelled strange, like dirt, fresh, dug up, and something old, decay, rot. There were wet footprints on the wood floor, bare feet, long toes, unnatural, but they didn't come from outside, no mud, no rain, just wetness. They came from 6B, the door slightly ajar. Ben followed them, step by step, to his own door. They stopped there. No return prints, no escape. Just one direction. 6B to him, a path, an invitation. That evening, the light in his bathroom stayed off, even with the switch up, flickering, dying. He lit a candle, wax dripping, looked in the mirror. His reflection, gaunt, but behind him, another shape, shifting, black, tall, eyes deep, hollow, same as before, but closer now. He turned, quick, breath catching. Nothing, just shadows, dancing. He looked again, slower. This time, the shape smiled. Teeth, too many, too sharp. The mirror cracked, a spider web of lines. Blood, a single drop, from his nose. At 3 a.m., the knocks came, but louder, harder, urgent. Knock, knock, knock. The whole wall shook, dust falling. Then, a voice, guttural, not from the wall, not from the hallway, from inside the room, under the bed. Come now, it rasped. Ben froze, bones ice. Then, from the closet, light, pulsing, red, a soft, red glow, breathing, calling, always calling. He walked toward it, legs lit, slow, shaking, flashlight dead. He opened the door, hinges screaming. Inside, the crack was wide now. A hole, gaping, a throat. A soft wind blew from it, warm, smelling of copper and soil, and the whisper again. Home. Ben leaned closer, hair standing. He saw stairs, winding, stone, wet, moss-covered, leading down, into pitch. He reached in, fingers brushing stone. The air felt thick, oily, like syrup, like sleep, dragging. Then, he heard himself. A voice, just like his, but wrong. Ben, welcome back. He fell backward. Scrambling, the closet door slammed, bang. He sat on the floor until morning. Dawn's light, weak, gray. He tried to leave again the next day, bag packed, half empty, shaking, shoes on, laces untied. He opened his door, but 6B's door was wide open. Inside, dark, but moving. But he heard voices, overlapping. His voice, many times, saying, stay, stay, stay. A chorus, a chant. He closed his door again, sat down, cried, tears hot. He doesn't go outside now. The mail piles up, bills, ads. The phone rings, but he doesn't answer. Jake's name flashes. Once. Twice. He talks to the wall. It answers. Knocks. Taps. Whispers. They knock to each other. A language only they know. He doesn't feel afraid anymore. Just tired. So tired. Sometimes he dreams he's walking the halls. But they're not the same. They're made of stone. Cold. Wet. Dripping. Echoes. Endless. Doors. All marked 6B. He hears whispers in the dark. Voices. Familiar. They say things like, "You are part now." No one ever really leaves. "We love you." And he believes them. He wakes up with dirt on his feet, mud on his hands, under nails. Sometimes blood, dried, brown, but no wounds, no pain, just proof. Now he sleeps at odd hours. Afternoon, sun blinding, morning, birds silent, never night. Night is when they walk. Night is when 6B opens. Night is when he hears the mirror breathe. In, out, in, out. Tonight, the knocking hasn't come. It's quiet. Too quiet. Ben waits. Clock ticking. He looks at the wall. It pulses now. Alive. Like a heartbeat. Thump. Thump. Red light glows faintly under the crack. He smiles. For the first time in weeks. He understands. Now. He belongs. He knocks 3 times. And waits. He tries to record it. Phone trembling in his hand. Red recording light blinking. The hum fills the room. Low. Vibrating. But when he plays it back, there's only silence. Dead empty. Or worse, his own breathing. Ragged. Wet. Even though he never made a sound. He deletes the file, but it reappears. Corrupted. Glitching. A voice in the static. "You can't hide us." He can't tell anyone. Jake doesn't believe him anymore. He came once. Weeks. Augusta felt the warm wall and jerked back. He said, "Maybe it's just bad wiring." But his eyes, wide, pupils blown. Then he never came back. Left Ben alone. With it. February 11th. Ben wakes up. 5:03 a.m. A handprint on the bathroom mirror. Not his, too big. Fingers too long. The mirror is foggy, cold, even though he hasn't used the shower. There's mud on the floor, thick, black, leading to the closet. He opens it, slow. The crack in the wall is wider. A slit. A mouth. He tapes it shut. Duct tape. Crisscross. Puts a chair in front. Wooden. Heavy. But the next morning, the chair is on the other side. Upright. Facing. The bed? He didn't move it. He lives alone. He's sure of that. Right online search. He checks listings. Apartment 6B. No records and no permits and no history, and like it doesn't exist. But it's there. Every night. It knocks. Uneven. Angry. It breathes. In. Out. Matching his rhythm. It hums. A lullaby his mother once sang. And now, it whispers. Ben, 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 always in his left ear. February 13th. The closet was open again. He writes. Ink bleeding. There was light. Red. Soft. Coming through the crack. I saw something behind it. Eyes. They looked like mine, but it wasn't me. It blinked. I think it's learning. I think it wants to come through. The pen slips. The page tears. A shadow moves under the door. We say Ben hears his name. Not from the radio. From the walls. The vents. The pipes. He turns everything off. Unplugs the TV. Screen black. removes the batteries from the smoke alarm, sits in silence, but the whisper still comes. Ben, soft, gentle, like a mother calling a child. He covers his ears, nails digging, but it's inside, in his skull, a worm, burrowing. He tries to sleep, pulls the curtains, but the apartment won't let him. The knocking changes. Knock, pause, knock, knock, pause, knock, a code, a plea. He knocks back, knock, knock. It repeats, perfect, mocking. The letter one evening, a letter, no return address, no stamp, just a scrap of paper. Stop looking at us. The ink, black, sticky, smelling of wet wood, iron. That night, the dream. He's in the hallway. Stone walls, wet, cold. A door. 6B. Inside. Mirrors. Endless. Every reflection. A version of him. Sleeping. Crying. Screaming. One watches. Smiles. Reaches out. Glass shattering. Ben wakes. Blood on his palm. The real mirror. Cracked. February 14th. The closet crack is a doorway now. He peers inside, flashlight dying, sees stairs, stone, moss, leading down, into the void. No basement, no blueprints. He drops, a coin. No sound, no end, just breathing. Louder. In. Out. The building's lungs. The neighbors. They bang on his door. Stop walking, stop knocking. But he doesn't. He swears. Yet his feet, black, muddy. His voice hoarse like he's been screaming, but he doesn't remember. February 15th. The fridge hums. Louder. Photos replaced. Childish drawings. Black crayon. Stick figures. Him. Lying in bed. Another. Standing. Eyes red. Hands open. Let me be you. He burns them. Ash reforms. Always. The same words. February 16th. Food tastes like ash. Water smells like rain. He drinks. Chokes. The hallway stretches and the walls bleeding. Whispers follow. Stay, stay, stay. 6B's door. A slit. He never looks. But something does. Yellow eyes. Glowing. 3:33 a.m. His reflection. In the TV. Not on the couch. Behind him, smiling. Hand on his shoulder. Cold. He blinks. The screen dies. But the hand remains. A shadow. Gripping. The end. The knocking stops. Silence. Thick. Heavy. Then, his voice. From the closet. Ben. It's time. The doorway. Red light. Stairs. Waiting in the shadow. His face on its own mouth. It smiles and threads snap. Ben steps back. Walls close. 6B's door. Wide. A wind pulls. He whispers. I'm ready. The rain. It never stops. He sits down. On the bed. Cushions dented, springs creaking. Then the couch. Fabric scratchy. Cold. Then by the door. Back against wood. Listening. He doesn't move for hours. Minutes blur. Breath steady. Until finally, he whispers back. Voice cracked. I'm ready. And the door slowly opens. Not his closet. 6B. The apartment is colder now. Even with the windows shut. Locked. Even with the heat on. Rattling. Useless. Ben wears a sweater. 2 layers. Wraps himself in blankets. Wool. Thin. But he still shivers. bones deep. The rain hasn't stopped. It taps on the glass. Tap, 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 like fingers, patient, waiting. He hasn't been outside in days, not since 6B's door opened. On its own. It stays open now, just a crack. Enough to see the dark inside. Swirling. He never crosses the hallway, but he watches. Eyes dry, unblinking. And he knows. Something inside watches back. February 17th. He hears footsteps. Not from above. No neighbors. Not from the hallway. Empty. Inside. At night. While he lies still. Blanket to chin. He counts the steps. 7. Pause. 7 again. A loop. Endless. He hides under the blanket, but the fabric feels thin, transparent, like it can't hide him anymore, like they see through it. 3 a.m. He tries to stay awake, pins his eyes open, but the apartment hums, a low, steady vibration. It rocks, gentle, like a cradle, lulling him, pulling him under. In his dream, he walks through 6B, but it's not a room. It's a tunnel, long, twisting, alive. The walls breathe, in and out. The floor pulses, soft, fleshy. Voices call from behind the walls. Some cry, help. Some laugh, hi, shrill. Some whisper his name. Ben. Ben. He wakes. Feet wet. Mud on the floor. And under his bed, a trail of small, barefoot prints, child-sized. February 18th. Ben sets up a camera, points it at the closet. A red light blinks. Recording. The next morning. He checks the footage. The room is quiet. Still. Then, 2:47 a.m., the closet opens. No hands. No sound. The door swings wide. Something steps out. A shape. Tall. Thin. Arms too long. Fingers dragging. It walks to the bed. Stares at Ben. Leans close. Inches from his face. Stays. 14 minutes. Then walks back. Vanishes. Ben stares at the screen, his own face in bed and still. But there's a moment, a flash, where his eyes open. He was awake. The file. He tries to delete the video, but the file is gone. Renamed, welcome back, and next to it, another, tonight. He doesn't click it. February 19th. The apartment changes. Small things. The fridge hums. A nursery rhyme. The bathroom light, red at night. The faucet leaks. Drip. Drip. A smell. Wet wood. Rust. Like a forest underground. But he's on the 6th floor. In the city. Where is it coming from? The call. He calls the landlord. No answer. He calls the office. The line rings. Rings. Then, stop digging, Ben. A man's voice. Flat. Dry. Silence. Ben drops the phone. The dream. That night, he's in the hallway. All doors open. 6B glows. Red. Warm. He enters. No floor, just water. Black, still. Faces float beneath, smiling. His face. Their face. He kneels, touches the water. A hand grabs him, pulls. He wakes, screaming. Pillow soaked. Rainwater. No leak. No storm. February 20th. He covers all mirrors. Can't look. Every reflection, him, but not him. Eyes black, smile sharp. The closet stays open. Taped, nailed, still opens. The apartment wants it. The note under his pillow. A scrap of paper. We were here before you. We never left. No handwriting. Just ink like blood. February 21st. Ben stops using lights. Lights candles. Shadows dance. Stretch. Smile. He hides. Corner. Holds a lighter. Weapon. The dark waits. Just outside the flame. February 22nd. The camera turns on. Records. A whisper. Let me be you. You were never alone. Open the door. The choice. That night, Ben walks to 6B. Door open. Dark. He steps in. The light fades. His apartment, gone. Only hallway. Endless. He turns. Door vanished. The whispers laugh. February 23rd. Ben wakes on the couch. Phone missing. Front door open. Hallway normal, but wrong. The rain stopped. Silence heavier. He walks closet. The crack in the door now. Wooden, old, no handle. Open. A sliver. Stairs. Down. Always down. The last note. He writes, "If I'm gone, don't follow. This place remembers, and it doesn't like strangers." Leaves it. Kitchen table. He steps through the door. The candles die. The rain stops. But if you pass by 6B, knock 3 times. And if you hear a reply, don't listen. It was well. Past midnight and the rain hadn't stopped. Ben stood frozen before the door to apartment 6B, his fingers trembling as they hovered over the doorknob. The hallway light flickered weakly, casting jagged shadows that danced like skeletal hands on the walls. His breath came in shallow, ragged bursts, each inhale tasting of mold and damp wood. He knew he'd closed this door hours ago, had even jammed a kitchen chair under the handle. But now it stood open, just a crack. A sliver of darkness spilled into the hallway, thicker than the night itself, as if the apartment were exhaling. Tap, tap, tap. The rain drummed against the windows, a relentless rhythm that had become the soundtrack to his unraveling sanity. Ben's throat tightened. He could still hear the whispers from last night, the ones that had slithered under his door and coiled around his thoughts. "You're almost home." He stepped forward, the floorboards groaning under his weight. The air thickened instantly, clinging to his skin like wet cobwebs. His flashlight beam trembled as he swept it across the room. What awaited him? A trap? A void? Could he survive whatever had been clawing at the edges of his reality since he'd moved in? The darkness here wasn't just an absence of light. It pulsed, breathed. It felt ancient, patient, as if it had been waiting centuries for him to step inside. Ben's mind clawed for clarity. How had he ended up here? The memories came in fragments, slippery and disjointed. Signing the lease, the landlord's yellowed smile. Quiet neighbors, great price. The first knock at 3 a.m. 3 sharp raps that echoed like gunshots. Photos appearing on his fridge. His face scratched out in every one. The crack in the closet wall, warm to the touch, humming like a sleeping beast. His boots sank into the carpet, the fibers suddenly soft and spongy. Too soft. It reminded him of the time he'd stepped into a peat bog during a childhood camping trip, the way the earth had swallowed his foot whole. He yanked his leg back, but the floor clung to him, pulling him deeper with every heartbeat. Ben staggered into the hallway, his flashlight catching the walls. They were no longer plaster and paint. Glossy black symbols snaked across the surface, throbbing like veins. He traced one with a shaking finger. Cold, wet, alive. The symbol shifted under his touch, rearranging into shapes that made his stomach churn. Eyes. Hundreds of them carved into the walls, their pupils dilating as they locked onto him. Ben. The whisper came from everywhere and nowhere. He recognized the voices now. His mother's lullabies, Jake's nervous laughter, his own screams, muffled by static. They crescendoed into a cacophony drilling into his skull. He clapped his hands over his ears, but the voices slithered through his fingers, venomous and sweet. You belong here. We've missed you. Stay. Ben ran. The hallway stretched and twisted, doors multiplying like funhouse, mirrors. Everyone bore the same brass plaque, 6B. He slammed his shoulder into a door, tumbling into a room that mirrored his own apartment, but wrong. The furniture melted like candle wax. The walls bled black sludge. The shadow in the corner coalesced into a figure, tall and impossibly thin, its head tilted at a broken angle. Stop! Ben choked out, backpedaling. The figure stepped into the flickering light. It wore his face. The floor split open with a roar, swallowing the shadow and the room whole. Ben plummeted into darkness, the air ripped from his lungs. When he opened his eyes, he was back in the hallway, the walls collapsing around him. Dust choked his throat. As he crawled through debris, his hands slick with something warm and metallic. A hand shot out of the rubble, skeletal, blackened, its fingers ending in hooked claws. It seized his ankle, cold searing through his flesh like frostbite. Ben screamed, kicking wildly, but the grip tightened. The void yawned beneath him, and he realized it wasn't pulling him down. It was pulling him in. Time dissolved. Ben floated in the void, the whispers now a symphony. His skin hardened, cracking like dried clay. Veins of black mold spread across his arms, rooting him to the floor. He tried to scream, but his jaw fused shut. The apartment flowed into him. The rot, the rain, the endless knocking. Do you know what happens when you never leave? The shadow's voice was his own now. Ben's final thought shattered as his mind dissolved into the walls. His voice, joining the chorus of tenants who'd come before him. The rain still falls. Apartment 6B sits quiet, its door slightly ajar. The landlord shows it to a new tenant, a young woman with tired eyes. Quiet neighbors, he says, smiling. As she signs the lease, 3 faint knocks ripple through the walls. No one hears them. No one but Ben. Story 4, breathing sounds that didn't come from me. Do you know what happens when you move into a dorm for your first year of college? You meet a lot of new people, and stories start circulating. Some funny, some incredibly strange. But what Emma heard from her roommate wasn't just a passing tale. There was something unnatural happening in that room. Emma had always dreamed of coming to the United States for college. The idea of starting fresh, far away from home, had always excited her. But now that she was finally here, those dreams felt much more overwhelming than she had expected. It was her first night in the dorm, and the reality of being alone in a new country, with no family or close friends nearby, was starting to settle in. When Emma first arrived at her dorm at the beginning of the semester, her feelings were mixed. She was excited but also anxious. This was her first time living away from home, and the new city felt overwhelming. The campus was huge, and the buildings seemed to stretch endlessly in every direction. She felt small and insignificant among the sea of students rushing around. Her room, though cozy, felt oddly isolated. It was small, with plain white walls and a single bed tucked in the corner, a worn wooden desk and a small dresser. The carpet beneath her feet was soft, but it had a worn look to it, like it had seen better days. She couldn't help but notice the flickering light in the corner of the room. It was an old light bulb that buzzed softly, almost like a hum in the air. It didn't seem to bother her at first, but now that she was alone in the room, she found herself staring at it, unable to shake the feeling that something was off. She shared this room with her roommate, Jessie, a sophomore. Jessie had been the first person Emma had met when she arrived, and at first they had exchanged polite pleasantries about college life. Jessie had promised to show her around the campus and introduce her to other students. But the more Emma spent time with her, the more she realized that Jessie had a strange way of speaking, always a little too calm, a little too cryptic. One night, Emma sat on her bed as Jessie spoke to her about ghost stories she'd heard from other students. "Everyone says they've heard strange sounds in these rooms," Jessie said in a hushed voice. "But no one really knows why." Emma tried to laugh it off, but there was something in Jessie's eyes that made her uneasy. "Do you think this place is haunted?" Emma asked, not entirely convinced. Jessie smiled, but there was something unsettling in the way she looked at Emma. "Maybe. But I've seen things. Or rather heard things. People say that once you get used to it, it's like the place becomes part of you. You'll hear the whispers too after a while." Her eyes flickered to the corner of the room, where the light flickered again. Emma felt an uneasy shiver run down her spine. Emma laughed nervously. "You're just messing with me, right? There's no way." Jessie didn't answer at first, but she stood up and walked toward the door. "You'll see," she said softly, her voice almost a whisper. "But don't worry, it's nothing. Just don't stay up too late, all right?" That night, Emma tried to shake off the strange feeling Jessie's words had left her with. She lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to focus on the hum of the lights. Her mind kept wandering back to the eerie stories Jessie had told. As the clock ticked past midnight, she closed her eyes, but sleep wouldn't come easily. It was then that she heard it. A soft sound, almost imperceptible at first, like someone was sighing in the room. She sat up straight in bed, her heart racing. She waited for a moment, straining to hear. Was it the sound of the old pipes in the walls, or maybe the building settling? She listened harder, but all she could hear was the faint sound of breathing, slow and steady. Did I imagine that? She thought. Her mind raced, but she tried to convince herself it was nothing. She lay back down, pulling the covers tighter around her, trying to ignore the sensation of something being there, even though the room was completely empty. The sound was still there, and it didn't belong to her. It felt wrong. Just the wind, she told herself. But the sound continued, growing louder now, as if something or someone was breathing just beside her. She turned to her side, facing the window, willing herself to fall asleep. But then she heard a soft whisper. "You're not alone here." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She turned quickly toward Jessie's bed, but Jessie was fast asleep, her back turned to Emma. There was no one else in the room. The whispers continued, faint, eerie, as if they were coming from the walls themselves. She pulled the covers over her head and tried to ignore the growing panic in her chest. What was happening? Was she imagining things? Was this just the stress of being in a new place, away from everything she knew? But the sounds didn't stop. The breathing grew louder, and then it sounded like footsteps. Slow, dragging footsteps across the carpet. Emma's eyes darted to the door. But the room was still, the door was locked, and there was no one there. She was about to call out to Jessie when she heard something else, something that made her blood run cold. The soft sound of a whisper right in her ear. "It's time." Emma shot out of bed, heart pounding in her chest. She ran to the door and tried to open it, but it wouldn't budge. The handle was stuck, and it felt like something was pressing against it from the other side. The room felt smaller now, suffocating. She stumbled back, but the air seemed to grow heavier, thicker with each passing second. Suddenly, the light above her flickered, and for just a moment, everything seemed to go black. When it came back on, Emma was standing alone in the middle of the room. The whispers had stopped, but the feeling of being watched lingered, and the cold chill in the air refused to leave. Her hands trembled as she looked at the clock on the wall. It was nearly 3 a.m. She stood there for a long time, unable to move. It felt like hours had passed, though it had only been a few minutes. What's going on? She wondered. Am I losing my mind? Eventually, Emma returned to her bed, but sleep wouldn't come. Not after that. Not after hearing those whispers. Not after feeling that cold presence. The room, once comforting, now felt like a cage, and Emma couldn't help but wonder, was Jesse's warning just a story? Or was something truly wrong with the room, something far darker than she could understand? The next morning, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. She wanted to tell Jesse about the strange events of the night, but when she looked over, Jesse was already gone, her bed neatly made. Emma sat in the silence of the room, trying to make sense of what had happened. But she couldn't. All she knew was that something was in that room with her, something that was waiting, and it wasn't going to leave her alone. The morning after the unsettling events in the room, Emma tried to shake off the feeling that had haunted her all night. She sat on her bed, staring out the window, watching the other students walk by, each of them seemingly lost in their own world. The campus was full of life, but Emma couldn't help but feel as though she was on the outside looking in. She had tried to push away the memories of the whispers and the strange breathing sounds, but they kept creeping back into her thoughts. Every time she closed her eyes, she could hear that voice again. "You're not alone here." The words lingered, echoing in her mind like a broken record. She glanced at the clock. It was nearly noon, and Jesse hadn't returned to the room yet. Emma had been awake for hours, but she hadn't had the courage to go out and explore the campus. All she wanted was to find a way to forget the terrifying experience from the night before. When Jesse finally came back later that afternoon, Emma was sitting on her bed, her knees pulled up to her chest. She looked up as Jesse entered the room, but there was something different about her. Jesse's smile seemed forced, and there was an unsettling look in her eyes. "You okay?" Jesse asked, her voice soft, almost too soft. "You look off." Emma didn't want to admit that she was still shaken by what had happened. She didn't want to sound paranoid or crazy, but the fear that had settled in her chest the night before hadn't gone away. In fact, it had only grown stronger. "I'm fine," Emma replied, forcing a smile. "Just tired. Maybe I didn't sleep well last night." Jessie nodded slowly, her eyes lingering on Emma's face. "Yeah, that happens here. You'll get used to it eventually." Emma's stomach churned at the thought of becoming used to this. Used to what? The whispers? The breathing sounds? The feeling of being watched, even when no one was there? Jessie sat down on her bed and started rummaging through her backpack, but Emma couldn't shake the feeling that there was something Jessie wasn't telling her. The air in the room felt thick, heavy. "Jessie," Emma started, her voice shaky. "About last night?" Jessie stopped what she was doing and turned to face her. Her eyes narrowed slightly, but her expression didn't change. "What about it?" I heard things," Emma admitted. "It sounded like someone was breathing in the room, like right next to me. And there were whispers too, like someone was talking to me, but no one was there." Jessie didn't look surprised. She didn't even flinch. Instead, she just nodded, as if she'd been expecting this. "Yeah, it happens to everyone eventually," she said, her voice low. "It's not a big deal. The place is old and it has its quirks. You'll get used to it." Emma couldn't believe what she was hearing. Used to it? How could she ever get used to something like that? Something that felt so wrong, so unnatural. "You're not freaked out by this?" Emma asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "How can you be so calm about it?" Jessie didn't answer right away. Instead, she stood up and walked over to the window, staring out at the campus below. "Because I've seen it before," she said quietly. "I've heard the voices, felt the presence." She turned back to face Emma, her eyes darkening. "This dorm is different. It's alive in a way, and once you hear the whispers, you can't escape them." Emma felt a chill run down her spine. "You mean, you knew this was going to happen?" Jessie nodded slowly, as if she'd been waiting for Emma to ask. "I didn't want to scare you, but I knew. The building has a way of drawing people in, people who are sensitive to it like you." Emma felt a wave of dread wash over her. "Sensitive? To what?" "The spirits," Jessie said, her voice barely a whisper. "They're the ones who make the sounds, the whispers, the breathing. They've been here for years. Some of the students here think it's just part of the place, but it's not. It's real." Emma's mind raced as she tried to process what Jessie was saying. Spirits? Ghosts? Was that really what she was dealing with? She couldn't deny what had happened to her the night before. The sounds, the whispers, the cold air. But the idea that this was somehow tied to spirits made her feel even more unsettled. "What do you mean by sensitive?" Emma asked, her voice trembling. Jessie sighed, sitting down again on her bed. "It's hard to explain. Some people come here and they don't hear anything. They don't feel anything. But others, they're more attuned to it. Like you. And once it notices you, it won't leave. The spirits want something from you. They want you to know they're here." Emma felt a lump form in her throat. "What do they want?" Jessie looked down, her fingers tracing the edge of her pillow. "They want to be remembered," she said softly. "They want someone to acknowledge them. They want someone to listen to their stories, to feel their pain. They've been trapped here for so long, and now they've found you." Emma's heart pounded in her chest. She wanted to scream, to run out of the room, but she couldn't move. It felt as though the air around her had thickened, pressing down on her chest. Suddenly there was a sound, a soft tap on the wall behind her. Emma froze. She turned slowly, but the room was empty. The sound came again, louder this time. Tap, tap, tap. It was coming from the wall just behind her bed. Emma's breath caught in her throat, and she stood up, her legs shaking. She slowly turned to Jessie, whose face had gone pale. "It's starting again," Jessie whispered, her voice shaking. "It's not going to stop now." Emma's heart raced as she stepped closer to the wall. The tap sounded again, louder than before, and it was followed by a soft, almost imperceptible whisper. "We are waiting." Emma backed away from the wall, her body trembling. Jessie was already at the door, her hand on the handle. "We have to go," Jessie said urgently. "We can't stay here, not now." Emma followed her, her mind spinning with questions and fear. The sound of the tapping continued, but now it seemed to be all around her, coming from every corner of the room. She could hear the whispers too, louder than before. "We are waiting. We are waiting. We are waiting." As Emma followed Jessie out of the room, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being pulled into something much darker than she had ever imagined, something that had been waiting for her to listen, And now that she had, there was no way out. The next few days passed in a blur of unease and growing dread. Emma felt as though the walls of the dorm were closing in on her, their heavy, suffocating presence pressing down on her every time she tried to sleep. Every night the whispers grew louder, more distinct, as if the spirits were trying to communicate with her in a way they hadn't before. During the day, Emma tried to distract herself. She went to her classes, sat through lectures, and met up with other students. But the fear never left her. It lingered like a shadow, always just behind her, watching. And Jessie seemed more distant than ever, her words now cold and empty, as if she too had grown numb to the supernatural occurrences. It wasn't until the night Emma couldn't sleep again that she noticed something strange. The air in her room was colder than usual, and the whispers were louder, almost frantic. Emma pulled her blanket tighter around her, trying to block them out, but the sound of breathing, slow, labored breathing, filled the room once again. The breaths were uneven, as if someone was struggling to draw in air. Emma's heart began to race. She looked around the room, half expecting to see someone standing at the foot of her bed, but the room was empty. The shadows on the wall seemed to stretch unnaturally, moving as if they had a life of their own. The sound of breathing grew louder. It was coming from beneath her bed. Emma froze, her blood running cold. She couldn't look away. She wanted to scream, but the sound caught in her throat. The breathing continued, each exhale growing heavier, more labored, like someone was trying desperately to get her attention. Emma slowly slid out of bed, her feet touching the cold floor. She couldn't stop herself. Her curiosity and fear drove her to move closer to the source of the sound. The closer she got, the more intense the feeling of being watched became. The hairs on the back of her neck stood up, and her breath became shallow. When she knelt down, her eyes met the dark space beneath her bed. She couldn't see anything, but the oppressive feeling was overwhelming. Her heart pounded in her chest as she reached her hand toward the floor, her fingers trembling with each inch closer she got. The sound of the breathing was deafening now, as though it were right beside her. Suddenly the air shifted. It grew colder, almost freezing. A voice, soft, cold, and barely a whisper, slipped into Emma's mind. "We are trapped. You are the key." Emma's eyes went wide. She jerked her hand back, her pulse racing as she scrambled to her feet. The key? She thought. What did that mean? Who were these spirits? And why were they trying to reach her? Her heart was pounding in her ears as she turned around, but the room was still empty. The air felt heavier than ever, the darkness around her thick and suffocating. The whispers continued, but this time they were joined by something else. A low, guttural growl, like something was lurking just out of sight. Emma backed away from her bed, her legs shaking with fear. She had to get out of there. She turned and rushed for the door, throwing it open and stepping into the hallway. But as she stepped out into the dim light of the dorm's corridor, she froze. Jessie was standing at the end of the hall, her eyes wide and glassy. She hadn't moved since Emma had stepped into the hallway. The silence was deafening as they stared at each other, and Emma felt the chill from the room following her into the hallway, creeping up her spine. You heard that too, didn't you?" Emma whispered, her voice barely audible. Jessie didn't answer. Instead, she just stood there, her face pale and expressionless. The air around her seemed to grow colder with each passing second, and Emma felt her chest tighten with fear. Finally, Jessie spoke, her voice barely more than a whisper. "I told you. It's not just the whispers. There's something under this building, something old, something angry." Emma's eyes widened. Under the building? What was Jessie talking about? Jessie, what do you mean? What's under this building? Emma demanded, her voice trembling. Jessie's gaze shifted toward the floor, her lips trembling as she struggled to find the right words. There's a hidden room beneath the floor. It's where the spirits are trapped. They've been there for centuries, waiting for someone to free them. But they don't want to be freed. They want to take someone with them. Emma felt a wave of nausea wash over her. A hidden room, spirits trapped beneath the floor. She wanted to run, to get as far away from this place as possible, but something held her in place. A strange pull, a force that kept her from leaving. Jessie took a slow step forward, her eyes darkening. You're the key, Emma. They've chosen you. They know you're the one who can set them free. No, I'm not, Emma shouted, her voice shaking with terror. I don't want to be the key. I don't want anything to do with this. But Jessie's expression remained unchanged. It's already started. They know you're here. You can't run from them. No one can. Emma felt the walls of the corridor closing in on her. The air was thick and heavy, as if the building itself was alive, breathing in time with her rapid heartbeat. The whispers were louder now, almost deafening. She could feel the pressure in her chest, like the spirits were closing in around her, suffocating her. You have to find the room, Emma, Jessie continued, her voice hollow. It's beneath the floor. It's the only way to stop them. Emma shook her head, the fear overwhelming her. She didn't want to know what was under the floor. She didn't want to know any of this. But deep down, she knew she had no choice. The whispers were calling her, and they wouldn't stop until she answered. As she stood there in the hallway, surrounded by the oppressive darkness, Emma realized that there was no escape. The spirits had found her, and now she was trapped with them. The key to unlocking their prison, and the only way to free herself, was somewhere beneath the floor. But what would she have to do to find it? The growls in the air grew louder, and Emma's heart began to pound in her chest. It was only a matter of time before she had to face whatever lay beneath the floor. The next few days passed in a blur of unease and growing dread. Emma felt as though the walls of the dorm were closing in on her, their heavy, suffocating presence pressing down on her every time she tried to sleep. Every night, the whispers grew louder, more distinct, as if the spirits were trying to communicate with her in a way they hadn't before. During the day, Emma tried to distract herself. She went to her classes, sat through lectures, and met up with other students, but the fear never left her. It lingered like a shadow, always just behind her, watching. And Jessie seemed more distant than ever, her words now cold and empty, as if she too had grown numb to the supernatural occurrences. It wasn't until the night Emma couldn't sleep again that she noticed something strange. The air in her room was colder than usual, and the whispers were louder, almost frantic. Emma pulled her blanket tighter around her, trying to block them out. But the sound of breathing, slow, labored breathing, filled the room once again. The breaths were uneven, as if someone was struggling to draw in air. Emma's heart began to race. She looked around the room, half expecting to see someone standing at the foot of her bed, but the room was empty. The shadows on the walls seemed to stretch unnaturally, moving as if they had a life of their own. The sound of breathing grew louder. It was coming from beneath her bed. Emma froze, her blood running cold. She couldn't look away. She wanted to scream, but the sound caught in her throat. The breathing continued, each exhale growing heavier, more labored, like someone was trying desperately to get her attention. Emma slowly slid out of bed, her feet touching the cold floor. She couldn't stop herself. Her curiosity and fear drove her to move closer to the source of the sound. The closer she got, the more intense the feeling of being watched became. The hairs on the back of her neck stood up and her breath became shallow. When she knelt down, her eyes met the dark space beneath her bed. She couldn't see anything, but the oppressive feeling was overwhelming. Her heart pounded in her chest as she reached her hand toward the floor, her fingers trembling with each inch closer she got. The sound of the breathing was deafening now, as though it were right beside her. Suddenly the air shifted. It grew colder, almost freezing. A voice, soft, cold, and barely a whisper, slipped into Emma's mind. "We are trapped. You are the key." Emma's eyes went wide. She jerked her hand back, her pulse racing as she scrambled to her feet. The key? She thought. What did that mean? Who were these spirits and why were they trying to reach her? Her heart was pounding in her ears as she turned around, but the room was still empty. The air felt heavier than ever, the darkness around her thick and suffocating. The whispers continued, but this time they were joined by something else. A low, guttural growl, like something was lurking just out of sight. Emma backed away from her bed, her legs shaking with fear. She had to get out of there. She turned and rushed for the door, throwing it open and stepping into the hallway. But as she stepped out into the dim light of the dorm's corridor, she froze. Jessie was standing at the end of the hall, her eyes wide and glassy. She hadn't moved since Emma had stepped into the hallway. The silence was deafening as they stared at each other, and Emma felt the chill from the room following her into the hallway, creeping up her spine. You heard that too, didn't you? Emma whispered, her voice barely audible. Jessie didn't answer. Instead, she just stood there, her face pale and expressionless. The air around her seemed to grow colder with each passing second, and Emma felt her chest tighten with fear. Finally, Jessie spoke, her voice barely more than a whisper. I told you, it's not just the whispers. There's something under this building. Something old, something angry. Emma's eyes widened. Under the building? What was Jessie talking about? Jessie, what do you mean? What's under this building? Emma demanded, her voice trembling. Jessie's gaze shifted toward the floor, her lips trembling as she struggled to find the right words. There's a hidden room beneath the floor. It's where the spirits are trapped. They've been there for centuries, waiting for someone to free them. But they don't want to be freed. They want to take someone with them. Emma felt a wave of nausea wash over her. A hidden room. Spirits trapped beneath the floor. She wanted to run, to get as far away from this place as possible. But something held her in place. A strange pull, a force that kept her from leaving. Jessie took a slow step forward, her eyes darkening. You're the key, Emma. They've chosen you. They know you're the one who can set them free. No, I'm not. Emma shouted, her voice shaking with terror. I don't want to be the key. I don't want anything to do with this. But Jessie's expression remained unchanged. It's already started. They know you're here. You can't run from them. No one can. Emma felt the walls of the corridor closing in on her. The air was thick and heavy, as if the building itself was alive, breathing in time with her rapid heartbeat. The whispers were louder now, almost deafening. She could feel the pressure in her chest, like the spirits were closing in around her, suffocating her. You have to find the room, Emma, Jessie continued, her voice hollow. It's beneath the floor. It's the only way to stop them. Emma shook her head, the fear overwhelming her. She didn't want to know what was under the floor. She didn't want to know any of this. But deep down she knew she had no choice. The whispers were calling her, and they wouldn't stop until she answered. As she stood there in the hallway, surrounded by the oppressive darkness, Emma realized that there was no escape. The spirits had found her, and now she was trapped with them. The key to unlocking their prison, and the only way to free herself, was somewhere beneath the floor. But what would she have to do to find it? The growls in the air grew louder, and Emma's heart began to pound in her chest. It was only a matter of time before she had to face whatever lay beneath the floor. Emma had never felt so alone in her life. Standing in the dimly lit hallway, her heart pounded in her chest as the whispers grew louder. They weren't just whispers anymore. They were like voices, pleading and desperate, calling her name in a twisted, mournful way. The sound of their breath, ragged and strained, filled her ears, making her head spin. She glanced at Jessie, whose eyes seemed glazed, like she was no longer truly there. The air around them was thick, oppressive, as if the entire building was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. Emma could feel the weight of the spirits pressing in on her, making her chest tighten with every passing second. "Jessie," Emma whispered, her voice trembling. "What do I have to do? How do I stop them?" Jessie's eyes flickered, but she didn't answer. Instead, she slowly pointed toward the ground beneath their feet. Emma looked down and felt her stomach drop. The floor beneath her seemed to pulse, as though something was moving beneath it. A dark, foreboding presence, like a hand reaching up to pull her down into the earth. "You have to go down there." Jessie's voice was barely audible, almost lost in the silence that had settled around them. "The room is beneath the floor. It's the only way to end this." Emma's hands trembled at her sides, her fingers aching with the pressure of uncertainty. She didn't want to go down there. She didn't want to face whatever lay beneath the building. But Jessie's words echoed in her mind. "You're the key. You have to stop them." The spirits were trapped, and they wanted freedom. Freedom that could only come at a price. And Emma was the one they had chosen. She was the one who could unlock the door to their release. But what if unlocking it meant she would never return? What if there was no way back from what awaited her down below? The thought nearly made Emma crumble to the floor. She felt a cold sweat break out on her forehead. But then, she remembered the breaths, the whispers, the haunting growls that had followed her everywhere. They would never leave her alone. They would keep her trapped in this nightmare forever unless she took action. "I have to do this," Emma whispered to herself, trying to steady her breath. "I can't let them win." Her voice wavered as she turned to Jessie. "Stay here. Don't follow me." Jessie didn't move. She simply stood there, her face a mask of emptiness. Emma took a deep breath and stepped forward, her feet heavy with fear but determined to do what was necessary. She followed the faint sounds of the whispers, leading her toward the center of the dorm's hallway. There she noticed an old, creaky, wooden panel at the far end of the hall. It seemed out of place, as though it had been there for centuries, waiting for someone to find it. Without hesitation, Emma knelt down in front of it. The wood was cold to the touch, and the sound of her fingers scraping against the surface sent a shiver down her spine. The whispers grew louder, urging her forward. She pushed against the panel, and with a groan it creaked open, revealing a narrow, dark staircase that led down into the shadows. A chill swept over her as she peered into the blackness below. The air smelled musty, like old wood and mildew. The temperature dropped, and Emma could feel the weight of the spirits bearing down on her. They were waiting for her. They knew she was the one who could set them free. Taking a deep breath, she stepped down into the darkness, her footsteps echoing in the silent void. The further she descended, the more the air grew thick with unease. She could feel the weight of the past pressing against her chest, the spirit's sorrowful, desperate pleas surrounding her. When Emma reached the bottom, She found herself in a large, cavernous room. The walls were lined with old stone, and a single dim light hung from the ceiling, casting long shadows across the floor. In the center of the room was an old stone altar, covered in dust and cobwebs. The floor around it was cracked and uneven, as if something had been trying to escape for years. The whispers were deafening now. They filled her mind, drowning out everything else. But as she looked around the room, she saw something. A symbol carved into the stone at the base of the altar. It was ancient, twisted and unfamiliar, but Emma knew it was the key to unlocking the spirit's prison. Without thinking, Emma moved toward the altar. The moment she touched the symbol, the ground beneath her feet trembled. A low, guttural growl echoed through the room, and the air around her became thick with a palpable sense of rage. The spirits were waking up. Emma pulled her hand back, but the symbol burned against her skin. She couldn't escape. The spirits were awake now, and they were coming for her. She stepped back, but the shadows around her seemed to come alive. Dark figures emerged from the corners of the room, their forms twisted and grotesque. They moved toward her, their eyes glowing with hunger. Emma's breath caught in her throat as she realized the truth. The spirits didn't want to be freed. They wanted her. They had always wanted her. She was the key to their release, but in the end, she would be the one trapped forever. "No!" Emma screamed, backing away, but the shadows closed in. They reached for her, their cold hands grasping at her ankles, pulling her toward the altar. But then, a voice cut through the chaos. It wasn't a whisper. It wasn't a growl. It was clear, commanding, and it came from deep within Emma's mind. "You are not alone." In that moment, Emma realized that she had the power to stop this. She wasn't just the key to their freedom. She was the one who could lock them away forever. She could end this nightmare once and for all. With all the strength she could muster, Emma slammed her hands onto the altar. The ground shook violently as the shadows recoiled. The spirits screamed, their voices rising in anger and pain. But Emma held her ground. She focused all her energy on the symbol, her mind reaching out to the darkness around her, and then, with a final, deafening roar, the room fell silent. The shadows dissipated, the growls faded, and the whispers stopped. The air cleared and the coldness in the room lifted. Emma stood there trembling, her body covered in sweat, but the oppressive weight of the spirits was gone. She had done it. She had freed herself. But she knew she would never forget the terror she had felt, the feeling of being trapped in a nightmare with no escape. And she knew that somewhere, deep beneath the floor of the dorm, the spirits still waited, their whispers just beyond the edge of her hearing. Emma turned and walked back up the staircase, the air around her now warm and light. As she stepped back into the hallway, the door to the dorm slammed shut behind her, and as she stepped outside, the rain began to fall. Story 5. Rain sounds, and something crawling on the roof. The rain started just after sunset, soft, steady, endless. Dr. Daniel Carter sat alone on the small metal-framed bed, staring at the cracked walls of the old outpost. The walls were stained with years of heat, dust, and something else he couldn't name. Outside, the sound of rain tapping against the tin roof made the place feel even smaller, even more trapped. Daniel was fresh out of medical school, 26 years old. He had never been in a war zone before. He had never even left the U.S. before this. And now, he was sitting alone in the middle of Iraq, assigned to a remote army outpost that barely showed up on any maps. The place had no name, just a set of coordinates. The soldiers called it Dead Man's Rest. At first, Daniel thought it was a joke, but tonight, he wasn't so sure. Rain poured harder, drowning out every other sound. Daniel hugged his arms around himself and looked around the room again. His clinic was just an old storage shed, turned into a sleeping area with a dusty mattress and a rusted fan that barely worked. There were no windows, only a heavy steel door, and the roof above, thin, battered, almost caving in. That's when he heard it. Something was crawling across the roof, slow, dragging, deliberate. Daniel froze. His heart slammed against his ribs. Was it just debris? Maybe a branch blown by the storm. No trees for miles. He remembered. The desert stretched out around them in every direction. The scraping sound grew louder, closer. Something heavy, moving just above his head. He stood up slowly, holding his breath. Probably just a rat, he whispered to himself. But the words sounded hollow, fake. He didn't believe them. Daniel stepped toward the door, careful, slow. The soldiers outside were probably still awake. If he could reach them, he wouldn't be alone with whatever it was. But then, thud. Something hit the roof hard, right above him. Daniel stumbled back, almost tripping over his own feet. His mouth went dry. The sound stopped. Dead silence. Only the rain tapping again, softer now, almost gentle. He listened for a long moment, his own breathing loud in the tiny room. Nothing. Finally, he inched toward the door again and pulled. It opened. The night outside was pitch black, no stars, only endless rain falling like a curtain. He could barely see the outpost's watchtower lights flickering in the distance. "Anyone there?" he called out, voice cracking. No answer. He stepped outside, boots sinking slightly into the mud. The air smelled like wet earth, rust, and something else, something metallic, like blood. Daniel shivered and headed toward the main building. Inside, a few soldiers were gathered around a battered coffee pot talking in low voices. They looked up when they saw him. "You okay, Doc?" one of them asked, a tall guy named Private Lewis. Daniel hesitated. "I thought I heard something on the roof." The soldiers exchanged a quick look, a look Daniel didn't miss. Private Lewis shrugged. "Rats, maybe. Big ones out here. Bigger than cats sometimes." Another soldier, Corporal Stevens, snorted. "Or ghosts," he muttered under his breath. Lewis shot him a sharp look, but Daniel caught the words. "Ghosts?" Daniel said, trying to laugh, but it came out thin. Stevens leaned back in his chair. "Yeah, Doc. Didn't they tell you? This place, Dead Man's Rest, used to be a mass grave, back during the old regime. Hundreds of bodies dumped here." Daniel stared at him, heart pounding harder now. Stevens went on, voice low, almost gleeful. "Locals say the souls never left. Say at night when it rains, you can hear them, crawling, whispering, looking for someone to take their place." The room fell silent. Only the hum of the fan, the drip of water leaking from the ceiling. Lewis stood up, stretching. "Don't listen to him, Doc. Just stories. First nights are always the worst." Daniel tried to smile, but the unease in his gut wouldn't go away. He thanked them and headed back toward his shed. The rain was even heavier now, and his clothes clung to his skin by the time he got back inside. He locked the door behind him, double-checking the bolt. He sat on the bed, listening. The roof was silent now. No scraping, no thudding. Maybe it really was just a rat. Or a bad first night imagination. He lay back, staring up at the ceiling, counting the drops of water leaking through. 1, 2, 3. Sleep came slowly and uneasily, somewhere in the middle of the night. Daniel woke up to the sound of breathing, not his own, shallow, wet, strained, coming from the far corner of the room. He sat up fast, heart hammering so loud he could barely hear. The room looked empty, but the breathing didn't stop. It moved, closer, dragging itself across the floor. Daniel squeezed his eyes shut. Maybe he was dreaming. Maybe if he stayed still it would go away. The breathing was right next to his bed now. He felt a cold, damp hand brush his ankle. Daniel jumped up, stumbling backward into the wall. The room was empty. No one there. Nothing there. Only the rain and the faint echo of something crawling away into the dark. The morning came. Gray. Heavy. The rain hadn't stopped. It just fell lighter now. A steady mist soaking the ground. Dr. Daniel Carter stood outside his shed, staring across the muddy courtyard. Soldiers moved in slow, tired motions, their boots squelching in the wet dirt. Everything smelled like mold, diesel, and something else. Something sharp, like old wounds that never healed. Daniel barely slept. The memory of that breathing haunted him, the cold, damp touch on his ankle, the feeling of being watched from the shadows. He kept telling himself it was just a nightmare, just nerves, first night jitters. But deep down, he wasn't sure. Private Lewis waved him over. "Morning, Doc. You look like hell." Daniel forced a weak smile. "Thanks." Lewis chuckled, handing him a battered metal mug. "Coffee's terrible, but it's hot." Daniel sipped it gratefully. It tasted like burnt rubber, but it helped. "Listen," Lewis said, lowering his voice. "Don't let last night mess with you. This place gets under your skin if you let it." Daniel nodded, but he noticed the tightness around Lewis's eyes, the way he scanned the courtyard, like he was always waiting for something. They headed toward the aid station, a converted supply tent at the far end of the camp. Daniel's new clinic was no better than his shed. Cots lined the walls. Supplies were stacked in broken crates. The smell of antiseptic fought a losing battle against the damp. As he unpacked his kit, Sergeant Miller came in, rain dripping from his poncho. "Doc," he said gruffly, "you're gonna want to hear this." Daniel straightened. "What's wrong?" Miller hesitated, glancing around like he didn't want the walls to hear. "Private Ramirez. He's missing." Daniel blinked. "Missing? How?" Miller wiped rain from his face with a dirty sleeve. "Last night, after lights out, nobody saw him leave. No signs of a struggle. It's like he just vanished." Daniel's stomach dropped. Miller's voice dropped lower. "Some of the guys, they say they heard something. Whispers. Out by the old well." Daniel frowned. "Old well?" Miller nodded grimly. "Behind the fence line. Locals say it's cursed. No one's supposed to go near it." Daniel felt a cold prickle down his spine. "Did anyone check?" Miller shrugged. "Couple guys went out at dawn. Didn't find nothing. Just mud and footprints that ended halfway to nowhere." Daniel swallowed hard. The memory of that cold hand last night clawed at his mind. Was it connected? He shook it off. Maybe Ramirez got lost. Maybe he wandered off during the storm, There had to be a rational explanation, right? That afternoon, Daniel found himself staring through the chain-link fence. Beyond it, the desert stretched out like a dead ocean. The rain had carved shallow rivers into the dirt, winding toward something dark in the distance, the old well. It leaned crookedly, half swallowed by the earth, a broken circle of stones and rotted wood, sinking into mud. He shouldn't go near it. Everyone said so, but he couldn't stop looking. Something about it pulled at him, like a splinter under the skin, like a whisper he almost heard. He turned away, heart pounding. Maybe he'd just walk by, just look, just once. Night fell fast. The rain picked up again, drumming harder on the tin roofs. Daniel sat in his shed trying to read by the weak light of a flickering lamp. Every sound outside made him flinch. Scrape, scratch, tap, tap. Was it just the wind? Or something else? He told himself not to be stupid still. He locked the door, bolted it tight. He tried to sleep, but the rain kept talking, whispering against the walls. Sometime after midnight, he heard it again, breathing. Not outside, inside. A wet, rattling breath right by his bed. Daniel's eyes snapped open. The room was pitch black. He couldn't see anything. The breathing moved, dragging, scraping. Something heavy shifted near his feet. He scrambled for the lamp, knocking it over. It clattered uselessly. In the dark, something touched his hand. Slimy, cold, wrong. Daniel jerked back, heart hammering so hard he thought it would explode. He stumbled toward the door, hands fumbling for the bolt. Behind him, the breathing grew louder. "Come with us." The words weren't spoken aloud, but they filled his head. Come down, down into the mud. Daniel ripped the door open and ran. The rain slapped his face, blinding him. The mud sucked at his boots. He didn't care. He ran. He didn't stop until he was standing outside the mess tent, gasping for breath. Lights flickered inside. Voices. Real, living people. He stumbled in, dripping wet. The soldiers stared at him. "Doc, you good?" Lewis asked, half rising from his seat. Daniel nodded shakily. Yeah. Just needed some air." No one asked questions. Maybe they didn't want answers. He sank into a chair, shivering. Lewis handed him a towel. As he dried his face, Daniel caught sight of something on the floor near the door. Footprints, but not from boots. Bare feet, small, narrow, like a child's. And they were muddy. Inside the tent. Daniel stared, heart thudding. Nobody else seemed to notice, or maybe they were pretending not to. Later, lying awake on a cot, Daniel listened to the rain. Somewhere out there, something was moving. Something that wasn't supposed to exist. Something that whispered in the dirt and crawled on rooftops and waited at the edge of the light. He closed his eyes, but sleep didn't come. Only the rain and the soft, wet sound of footsteps circling the tent, waiting. Morning came, heavy, slow. The rain hadn't stopped. If anything, it fell harder now. Gray sheets of water blurred the landscape. The desert looked like an endless swamp, thick mud swallowing everything. Dr. Daniel. Carter sat alone at a mess tent table, staring into a cup of black coffee. It was cold, bitter. He hadn't slept. Not really. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw those muddy footprints, heard the whispering breath, felt that cold touch again. He kept glancing at the tent entrance, half expecting to see a small figure, standing there, dripping wet, smiling. Louis dropped into the seat across from him. He looked just as bad, dark circles under his eyes, hands trembling slightly as he held his coffee. "You feel it too, huh?" Louis muttered. Daniel frowned. "Feel what?" Louis leaned in, voice low. "This place, it's different now. Worse." Daniel didn't answer. He didn't have to. The heavy silence between them said it all. By mid-morning, Sergeant Miller called a meeting in the motor pool. The soldiers huddled together under a sagging canopy. Rain dripped from the edges, soaking shoulders and boots. Miller's face was grim. "All right, listen up. Search parties are going out. We're gonna find Ramirez." A few guys muttered uneasily. No one really believed Ramirez was still alive. Miller ignored it. "Stick to your assigned sectors. Stay in groups of 3. And stay the hell away from that damn well." He didn't explain why. He didn't have to. Everyone already knew. Daniel ended up assigned with Louis and a private named Harrow. Harrow was young, maybe 19, eyes too wide, hands too twitchy. The 3 of them trudged out past the main fence, into the rain. The desert was a wasteland now. Deep puddles, collapsing sandbanks, dead trees half drowned in muck. Visibility was awful. They could barely see 10 feet ahead. "Stay close," Daniel called over the rain. They picked their way through the sludge, scanning for any sign of Ramirez, boot prints, gear, anything, nothing. Only mud and more mud. And the sound of water dripping from broken branches. And sometimes, very faintly, something else. Whispering. Louis heard it too. Daniel could see it in the way he kept looking over his shoulder. Harrow stumbled on a hidden rock and cursed. Daniel helped him up. Their hands were slick with mud. "You okay?" Daniel asked. Harrow nodded, but his eyes darted nervously toward the horizon. "Thought I saw something," he muttered. "What?" Louis asked sharply. Harrow shook his head. "Not sure. Like a kid." Louis and Daniel exchanged a grim look. No one said anything. An hour later, they came to a low ridge. Beyond it, the old well. It sat like a rotting tooth in the ground, leaning, sagging. The rain had carved deep channels around it, making it look even more sunken. They shouldn't go near it. Orders were clear, but something pulled at Daniel. A low, aching tug in his chest. Without thinking, he stepped closer. "Doc, no," Louis hissed. Daniel barely heard him. The well seemed to pulse and breathe, like it was alive. The whispering grew louder. "Come closer. Come see." Daniel stumbled down the ridge, sliding in the mud. Louis cursed and followed. Harrow stayed behind, trembling. The air grew colder as they approached. Daniel could see the stones now, blackened with mold, slick with moss. The wooden cover was broken, half hanging into the hole. Something dark moved below, or maybe it was just the shadows. He wasn't sure. He didn't want to be sure. Suddenly a hand shot up, thin, skeletal, fingers clawing at the air. Daniel staggered back, slipping in the mud. Louis grabbed his arm, hauling him upright. "Move!" Louis barked. They scrambled up the ridge, mud sucking at their boots. Behind them, the whispering rose into a wail. "Don't leave. Don't leave me." Daniel didn't look back. He didn't dare. They didn't find Ramirez. No one did. By nightfall, the search was called off. The camp felt different now. Tighter. Meaner. Guys jumped at every noise. Some refused to leave their tents at all. Miller ordered extra watches, tripwires, flares, but deep down, everyone knew it wouldn't help. Whatever haunted this place, it wasn't afraid of fences or guns. It was already inside. Daniel lay awake, staring at the ceiling. He could hear the rain, and something else. Something crawling across the tin roof. Slow, scraping. He squeezed his eyes shut. It's just rats, he told himself. Just rats, but rats didn't whisper your name. Daniel. His eyes snapped open. The voice was right above him. Soft. Wet. Come down. Come down to me. He sat up, heart pounding. The shadows seemed thicker now. The corners of the room pressed in. Too dark, too heavy. He heard it again. The wet slap of bare feet on the floor. Daniel grabbed his flashlight, fumbling with the switch. The beam cut through the darkness. Shaking. Nothing there. The door creaked open. Cold air spilled in. Daniel aimed the light at the doorway. A small figure stood there. A child, maybe 8 years old. Barefoot, drenched, eyes black as holes. The child smiled. Daniel couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. The child raised a hand, pointing. Come back, it whispered. Then it turned and walked away, leaving muddy footprints behind. Daniel sat frozen, shaking. Outside, the rain kept falling, but under it, he heard something else. Voices, dozens of them, crying, begging, calling for him, calling him home. He didn't remember falling asleep. He woke to silence. The rain had stopped. The world outside looked wrong somehow. Colors too bright, shadows too deep. The camp was quiet. Too quiet. He stumbled outside, blinking in the harsh gray light. No one moved. No sounds of engines. No shouted orders. Nothing. He walked toward the mess tent. Chairs were overturned. Plates smashed. But no bodies. No blood. Just empty. Like everyone had been erased. Daniel's skin crawled. A low sound made him turn. The child stood by the fence, watching him. Beyond the fence, figures moved in the mist. Hundreds of them. Thin, broken, dragging themselves through the mud. Daniel backed away, heart hammering. But there was nowhere to go. The fence, the buildings, the desert, all led back to the well. He could feel it pulling at him now, stronger than ever. He stumbled toward the gate, hands trembling. The child smiled wider, waiting, welcoming. By the time Daniel reached the well, he was soaked in sweat. The stones seemed to breathe. The hole yawned wide. Whispers rose from the depths. Come back. Come home. Daniel stood at the edge, staring down. The darkness below seemed endless. Something moved deep inside, a hand, a face, dozens of faces, crying, laughing, begging. He felt his foot slip. He didn't fight it. As he fell, the voices rose into a deafening roar. The last thing he saw was the child's smiling face, leaning over the edge, waiting, welcoming him home. There was no light, no sound, no air, only falling, endless falling. Dr. Daniel Carter felt the world peel away, layer after layer, memory after memory, faces blurred, names lost, until he wasn't Daniel anymore. Just a hollow thing tumbling into the dark. Then, pain. Cold, sharp pain, stabbing into his lungs. Daniel gasped and choked, sputtering. Up filthy water, he lay on his side, coughing, shivering. Mud clung to his skin. His clothes were torn. His boots were gone. He was lying at the bottom of the well. The stones rose around him, slick and black, pressing in like prison bars. Above, a circle of gray sky hung impossibly far away. Rain dripped from the broken boards, tapping on the stones like fingers. Tap, tap, tap. He wasn't alone. Shapes moved at the edges of the well. Figures. They shifted and twisted, whispering to each other in broken voices. Daniel tried to stand, but his legs wouldn't obey. He could only crawl, dragging himself through the freezing mud. The figures watched him, smiling. Their faces were wrong, twisted, melted, rotting. Some wore pieces of uniforms. Tattered dog tags swung from skeletal necks. Others were children. Small hands reached out, brushing his shoulders, his hair. "Stay," they whispered. "Stay with us." Daniel closed his eyes. It would be so easy. Just lie down. Just let go. Become another lost thing, another ghost in the mud. But somewhere, deep inside, a voice whispered, "No." He pushed himself up, trembling. The figures hissed. Long arms grabbed at him, trying to pull him back down. Daniel fought. He kicked, scraped, bit. He was weak, half dead, but he was still alive, and that mattered. The walls were slick, almost impossible to climb. But Daniel dug his fingers into the cracks, found footholds where he could. He slipped, fell, cut his palms on the stones. He climbed again. Higher. Higher! The figures screamed below, furious. Their whispers turned into shrieks, sharp enough to stab through his skull. Still, he climbed. His muscles burned. Blood ran down his arms. He didn't look down. He couldn't. He focused on the broken boards above, on the gray sliver of sky, on freedom. Inch by inch, he rose. The rain lashed his face, blinding him. The wind howled. Finally, his fingers brushed the edge. He gritted his teeth and pulled. He collapsed onto the ground outside the well, sobbing, gasping. The mud tried to suck him back down. The voices clawed at his mind, but he was free. For now. The camp was gone, where the buildings had stood. Now there were only ruins. Broken tents flapped in the wind. Charred frames of vehicles jutted from the mud like bones. No soldiers, no radios, no lights. Daniel staggered through the wreckage, calling out, "Hello? Anyone?" His voice echoed, thin and small. Nothing answered, only the rain, and somewhere, far away, the soft sound of something crawling across metal. Scrape, scrape, scrape. He found Lewis's jacket snagged on a piece of barbed wire. Torn, bloody. No sign of Lewis. No sign of Harrow or Miller or Ramirez. Daniel was alone, utterly, hopelessly alone, or so he thought, until he saw the child again, standing by the wreckage of the mess tent, barefoot, soaked, smiling, waiting. Daniel backed away. "No," he rasped. "Not again. Leave me alone." The child tilted its head. "You never left," it said. And then the ground split open beneath him. He fell again, But not into the well. This time, into something worse. Into the memories. Into the history. He saw it all. Played out in flickering images. A village long ago. Soldiers shouting. Bodies falling. A pit dug into the earth. Filled with the dead. Blood soaking the sand. And the voices. Oh God, the voices. Screaming for justice. Screaming for peace. Screaming to be remembered. But no one listened. The pit was buried. Forgotten. Until now. Until Daniel's unit built their camp on top of it. Until they disturbed the grave. Until they woke the ones who could not rest. He understood, finally. This wasn't about him. It wasn't about Ramirez, it wasn't about any of them, it was about the place. The well wasn't a well at all. It was a wound, a bleeding scar on the earth, and the land would never forget. Would never forgive. Daniel opened his eyes. The world had changed, the rain was gone, the sky was a deep, dead black. The desert stretched out in endless darkness. The camp was completely gone now, swallowed by mud and ash. The child stood before him, but it wasn't a child anymore. It was something older, something ancient. Its eyes burned like coals. Its smile stretched too wide. You see now, it said. Daniel nodded. Tears ran down his face. I see. The thing tilted its head. You can stay, or you can run. Daniel swallowed hard. His body ached. His soul ached. But somewhere, deep inside, a spark still burned. He turned away. Step by step, he walked into the darkness. The thing didn't follow. It only watched, and as Daniel disappeared into the black desert, he heard it whisper, "You'll be back. They always come back." Days passed. Weeks, maybe months. Daniel lost track. He wandered the desert surviving on rainwater and scraps. He didn't find any other people, only empty towns, abandoned roads, ghosts. Always ghosts. Sometimes he heard footsteps behind him. Sometimes he woke to find muddy footprints circling his camp. But he never saw the child again. Not yet. He knew it was waiting. It had all the time in the world. And he was only human. Humans break. Humans forget. Humans come back. Eventually, one night under a sky full of strange frozen stars, Daniel found a road, an old, broken road leading west. He followed it. His boots, someone else's now, crunched over gravel. In the distance, lights twinkled. Maybe a town. Maybe salvation. Maybe another illusion. He didn't care. He kept walking. Behind him, the desert stretched, endless and black. Behind him, the rain began to fall again, soft, steady, and somewhere high above. Something crawled across the abandoned telephone wires, scraping, dragging, waiting, smiling. And just like that, the experiment ends. But the darkness, it's only beginning. Smash subscribe, slam that bell, or the next nightmare might claw its way into your feed. And linger. Tell us, when Kyle vanished into the forest, do you think he found freedom? Or did he become a pawn in a game far beyond his control? Drop your truth below. Share this with anyone who still believes safety exists. Because it doesn't. This is American Pulse and Paranormal. Sleep tight.